the weather's not exactly appropriate for how we're feeling right now. Sometimes I look out and I say, yep, that's right. It's better that it's that way. But not today. Today it should be bright, sunshiny days. Lovely weekend. Couldn't have gone a lot better than it did. Good morning, it's Glenn Clark Radio. I'm Glenn, he's Griffin. Thanks everybody who hung out with us last night for Project Game Day. Late night, no bickering. Really? We had to force things in order to even have disagreement?
Had to talk about other teams.
Yeah, I had to talk about other teams. Femi had to try to undercut past criticisms of the Ravens in order to try to get people riled up. It was a lovely, lovely late-night edition of the program. Plus, we were able to start early because they pulled Josh Allen. God, what a night that was. What a night. We do Project Game Day every game day. We'll be back following Baltimore-Cincinnati next Sunday. Hope that you will join us, PressBoxOnline.com/gameday. It's all brought to you by a bunch of people, including 1-800-GAMBLER, including the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton, the Maryland 5-Star, Easy Pass, and BetYard AI. Project Game Day. Every game day. PressBoxOnline.com/gameday. Femi will check in with us as he does every Monday. Also coming up on the program today, we'll talk some Orioles with Zach Moore, Pigtown Sports, former Birds minor leaguer. And later on in the program, Jermey Conn joins us as he does every Monday, stuffing things. We'll do pats on the ass, slaps in the helmet. I guess we'll have to recap picks, but I might as well just go ahead and start waxing now. Like, I might as well just go ahead and it's over, Jack. Like, it's awful, but we'll talk about that later on in the program. Not much more for me to say that I didn't say last night. And it's extraordinarily pleasant for the Ravens to put together the performance they did. Because of the late night game, I'm not writing a column today at PressBoxOnline.com the way I usually do. I'd also debated this week whether or not I would write an Orioles column, but then with the games like being 2 days from now, we try to do things that are a bit more evergreen for PressBoxOnline.com. Or at least don't have a quick expiration, so that's the reason why, sometimes I write about specific topics and not about others. If I wrote a column this week, it would largely be, yay! But if you want my follow-up take, it is a reminder that this is the NFL and that no one result is the end-all, be-all of results. As we're reminded constantly every week throughout the league. A week ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looked like ass. This week, the Philadelphia Eagles did. This is the way that it goes. This notion that any one game tells you a particular story about any one team is nonsense. The Ravens were blowing out the best teams in football in December last year, which, of course, as you know, led them to make a run to winning Super Bowl. I'm now being told that didn't happen. They didn't win Super Bowl 58. They didn't even make it.
Still too soon. Yeah.
This is the reality that it is one result, but it's a really good result over a team that we believed was really good. The big picture takeaway from last night is this is what a Lamar Jackson-Derrick Henry combination should do for a football team. We kept saying it should be unstoppable. And when it's humming, it's unstoppable. I'll have the unpopular opinion, which is I do think that was too many touches for Derrick Henry last night in week 4 of a football season. Not that I'm worried about Derrick Henry breaking down per se, because Derrick Henry is an alien, but simply because my priority for Derrick Henry is January. That's the reason why Derrick Henry's here, to me. So I didn't like the idea of when John Harbaugh said we don't want Derrick Henry getting 30 carries a game. I didn't want him to either. I don't want this offense to become, and one-dimensional is unfair. That's not correct. But entirely based or predicated on the success of Derrick Henry. And I don't think that I'm going to say that's what it is after 4 weeks, but it's got a lot to do with it. But this is what it's supposed to look like when you have Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield. It's supposed to be unstoppable. The reason why I say I have some trepidation is simply because not every game circumstance is always going to allow you to simply give the ball to Derrick Henry constantly. And I don't know what next week's game will present. We do this all the time. When the Ravens are playing bully ball, things are going well. They've been playing a lot of bully ball the last 2 weeks. Got away from them in the fourth quarter against Dallas, but again, there was some goofiness in there. They're great when they're playing bully ball. What happens when they can't play bully ball? And I don't know what next week will bring. Because I don't think particularly much of Cincinnati's defense. But I do think that they have the weapons beyond just the quarterback to be able to have more success offensively against the Ravens than the Bills did. And I don't know that the Ravens will simply be able to play, here's Derrick Henry, what are you going to do about it? Which doesn't mean it doesn't negate anything that's happened. You don't say, well, that last night doesn't count because they got, no. This is what they're capable of doing. They're capable of getting on the front foot and burning the hell out of you. But they've been capable of doing that with lesser running backs. They didn't need Derrick Henry in order to be able to do that last year. They didn't need Derrick Henry in order to be able to do that in previous seasons when Lamar Jackson was healthy. They've been able to do that with lots of different running backs. Mark Ingram, who was at the game last night. Gus Edwards. J.K. Dobbins. Briefly when J.K. was healthy. We didn't see a lot of it. Keaton Mitchell. They've been able to do this. It doesn't make it bad. It doesn't mean that I'm not excited about it. And it doesn't mean that it isn't in ways even more special when you watch Derrick Henry do it. Because, again, Derrick Henry is an alien. He's just a different life form. When you see Derrick Henry do it, it's like watching Jimi Hendrix play guitar. You're seeing something. You're witnessing a human. And in Derrick Henry's case, it's also because he's built so differently. But it's a different beast, man. Still, it does not, to me, say this is definitively who the Ravens are every week. I don't know what next week looks like. Somebody might say you don't know what that last night would have looked like had Kyle Van Noy not stepped up and made a big play. When momentum started going the other way, and when doubt started to creep in, and when the Ravens had gone fumble, end of quarter, 3 and out in 4 consecutive offensive possessions, I don't know. Thankfully, we'll never know. Thankfully, Kyle Van Noy did step up and make a play. Tide turned. Momentum shifted. All's good. We'll never have to think about it again. And in fairness, that can prove to be the difference, right? Like, what do you do? Who makes the plays? I've said a million times. Being the team that makes the plays, the clutch team, the winning plays, is absolutely something that can be as significant as being the better team. The Ravens, of course, were the better team than the Bills last night. But on top of that, when they needed to, they made the better winning plays. And that started early on. That started with David Ojabo setting the edge, then getting the hit on Josh Allen that forced the ball to come out quickly on 3rd and 1, forced that throw to be thrown to outside, behind Dawson Knox, which allowed for Dawson Knox to be stopped on 3rd and 1. That's a game-changing play. We used to do a segment called 5 Plays that told the story. And while Kyle Van Noy's would probably be number 1, and maybe you'd argue that the first Derrick Henry run would be number 2, that would be at worst number 3. Setting the tone early on, making winning plays. 3rd and 1 should always be a conversion. Game-changing play to get a stop. It's akin to forcing a turnover. Getting a stop on 3rd and 1. Massive moment in that football game. A lot of good. Early season struggles of Zach Orr, forgotten. It's humming right now. Kyle Hamilton's being used the right way. They're getting high levels of production. Maybe production is the wrong word. Of
efficiency?
Yeah, that might be a better way of saying it. From Ajabo and Owe to go along with Kyle Van Noy just being an effing monster. I keep using the word heroic, and that's because it's the only word I can come up with. For this cat to be doing what he's doing over the last 3 weeks, this is some next-level stuff, dude. It does make you wonder about who else is on the scrap heap, right? Like, what could Yannick Ngakoue do for you in the coming weeks? I mean, this is nuts, what Kyle Van Noy is doing right now. Truly insane. Mixed bag from Nate Wiggins still. Like, you see really good moments. You see moments where, and I certainly, look, man, I'm not blaming Nate Wiggins at all for the Khalil Shakir thing. I know that Nate Wiggins had him early, but it was pretty clear that he thought he was releasing him to Eddie Jackson, and I don't know what Eddie Jackson
also,
thought.
No one else makes that throw. Maybe in the NFL
right, but that still doesn't absolve anyone of you have to stay on your assignment until that dude's out of bounds. Until that play is over, you can't suddenly just say, well, he's not making that throw, so I can just not cover the guy. That's bad. That's bad. But thankfully, that was it. That was the only one during the course of the night that you look back on and say, yikes. I mean, the Bills were finding some success in the middle of the field early on. That's what they do. And last night was an example of how the Bills are impacted by the fact that they lost their 2 top receivers. This thing where we were like, hey, through 3 weeks, the Bills, they're actually even better offensively. Well, no, they're not. They're not better. The argument that, like, we heard from folks last week that, hey, Josh Allen has had to spread the ball around a little bit more, that part might be true. But it's pretty clear that they're not comfortable trying to make big plays to the outside. Now, as the game went on, we saw a couple more to Keon Coleman after he dropped the first one. And maybe by the time we get to the playoffs, and maybe if the Ravens play the Bills in the postseason this year, then we'll have a conversation then about whether or not the Bills were able to kind of reclaim that team based on whatever Keon Coleman might do the rest of the way. Like, to me, watching the Bills, Keon Coleman becomes critical for them. Their ability to be a high-level AFC title contending team is almost predicated on, one, their ability to establish the run, which they didn't do last night. 2, and that was the story. That was why the smarts were all over the Ravens. It was like the one game I got right. The smarts were all over the Ravens because
smart. Or?
Yeah, well, I was with. They were on some other. The smarts were also on the Cardinals. So,
wow.
I made a couple of picks based on what the smarts told me. The Bengals, they said no. They said Carolina's got to cover there. Cincinnati's defense stinks. Yeah, didn't happen. Anyway, moral of the story being, I heard Andrew Stetka say it was like his best week ever betting. I'm like, that makes one of us. makes one. Not for me. Not for your boy. I'm sorry. The smarts were on the Ravens because they thought the Ravens would do to the Bills what no one had done yet. What no one had done yet was shut down the run. And the Bills are not the same offense based on their lack of explosive outside playmakers if you can shut down the run. And the Ravens did that. They took them away. Forced the Bills to be one-dimensional, and one-dimensional without the game-changing talent that they've had in the past. Maybe Keon Coleman will be that at some point. If he can get there this season, Bills are a real threat. If he can't, I don't think we can. This is the thing that we never liked doing when we used to try to criticize the like Joe Flacco. We don't like talking about how wide receivers matter. We just constantly have this belief that, well, you can just win with anybody if you're that good. And the list of quarterbacks who have ever done that are Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. End of list. Entirety of list of quarterbacks whose success has not been correlated with who they had to throw the ball to. And that wasn't always the case for either one of them. Like, in fairness, Patrick Mahomes has had Travis Kelce. Tom Brady had Rob Gronkowski, Randy Moss. But there were years in which Tom Brady had an also-ran group of wide receivers and still was able to succeed. And at wide receiver specifically, Patrick Mahomes has had that. But, negated a bit by the fact that he's had Travis Kelce. So even that is a stretch. Dalton Kincaid's a nice player, but he ain't Travis Kelce. That part matters. We can say what a connection Josh Allen has with Khalil Shakir. And Khalil Shakir's a nice player. And if he was a number 3 receiver on any team, you'd feel great. You might even be able to say if he was a number 2 receiver. And you can argue that the Ravens might also end up being in the same situation if someone could take away the run. Problem is that requires someone taking away the run. It's a little bit different when you're talking about Derrick Henry. A bit different. Of course, the Ravens, the last time, were the ones that took away the run. That's the funny part. They could also take it away from themselves. As we've learned in big games, they have that option. Look, man, great night. Great win. You're feeling good. But still, like, there's no rest. There's no, okay, now everything's fixed. I still believe that the AFC North will ultimately come down to Cincinnati and Baltimore. Even though the Bengals started 0-3. Even though the Steelers started 3-0 before they finally lost yesterday. Thank you, Joe. I think that this comes down to this. The ability to try to take Cincinnati out of the equation early, or at least make it extraordinarily unlikely for them, is right in front of you. You can't check the box because no one can really be eliminated after 5 weeks. But you can go a long way coming up next week. Big win worth celebrating, fun, statement victory, all of those things. But you lost 2 games to start the season, including one you had no business losing. So you don't really have room to turn around and slip up. You got to keep this thing going. You got to trade off a bad home loss for another unexpected road win. And if you want to say the Cowboys was an unexpected road win, then your standards are lower than mine. I haven't looked at the odds. I'm assuming that the Bengals are probably a point favorite.
This is in Cincinnati?
Yeah. It's possible. It's possible that, like, last night was such a statement that the Ravens are... It feels like the Bengals, it would be disrespectful, even as much as they struggled to start the season, it would feel disrespectful for the Bengals to be home dogs.
Is there not a... There's got to be a line somewhere, right?
There's got to be a line.
I'll find it. Hold on. Sorry.
No, we got to get to a break, too.
I know. Well, my normal...
Hang on. Wow, Ravens 2.5-point favorites. Wow. Wow.
And you can't really go against them, though. Like...
At the moment, I hear you. Hang on a second. That's changed. So somebody.
No, I still see 2.5.
I got 1. I got one.
FanDuel
now.
has -2.5 Ravens.
FanDuel has -2.5. CB, whatever. Bet3. That's Bet365. I don't know what Bet365 is.
Is that like the more
-1.
global one? I guess.
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, they're 1-point favorites on the road. They gotta prove it. They gotta go take another one and prove that this is who the Ravens are and not the team that we saw earlier in the season. All right, today's show is also brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, what's going on in Live Casino and Hotel? I believe Washington's back home this weekend.
Yes, Washington's back home. Hopefully, you were hanging out at Live Casino last night during the Baltimore game last night, because every time that the Baltimore or Washington football team score a touchdown during home games, Live Rewards members get free $7 in slot play. You have to have your Live Rewards card inserted correctly into any slot machine and be actively playing in order to receive your prize. It is valid for slot play only. And again, every time that Baltimore or Washington scores a touchdown during home games, free $7 in slot play. Add Rona Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, when we come back in, we're going to talk about the other side of things. The Orioles now know their fate. They're facing the Royals, which is a bit of a surprise to me, in the wild card round starting tomorrow. We'll talk all about it. Our buddy Zach Moore, Mr. Pigtown Sports, former Orioles minor leaguer, joins us next. Glenn Clark Radio.
At A.J. Michaels Heating and Cooling, you get maximum value for your investment. You'll save 50% in heating costs, get $6,000 in rebates, and a no-interest energy loan. That's value. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
Experience the thrill of the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, coming October 17th to the 20th. See the world's best equestrians compete in the sport of eventing, the ultimate test of horse and rider. Enjoy a weekend festival featuring locally sourced food at the Fresh Food Fest, a beer, wine, and spirits showcase, shopping, and fun for all ages. Check out the Maryland Corgi Cup, interactive kids corner, and more. It's the place to be in October. Visit maryland5star.us for tickets.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas' 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at costasinn.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka profiles Ravens star safety Kyle Hamilton, detailing his path from growing up the son of a basketball player to choosing football, being overlooked in the draft, and turning into a defensive unicorn as a playmaking Swiss Army knife in the NFL. Also inside, meet college football players from all of the area's D1 programs and some of the area's college soccer standouts as well. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 locations throughout the region, including 60 Royal Farm stores. Or you can read the entire issue at PressBoxOnline.com, where you can also find great betting advice and the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark,
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along on a Monday, a pleasant Monday edition of the program. Stan the Fan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson are getting together a little bit later on today to preview Orioles-Royals, and you'll be able to check that out at 5:30 live at facebook.com/PressBoxSports. If you miss it, you can go to the same place and click on the videos tab. Go to youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. That's coming up later today. Stan Charles, Ross Grimsley, Luke Jackson previewing Orioles-Royals. Check that out. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports coming up at 5:30. Let's preview Orioles-Royals ourselves. Joining us now, you know this man from Pigtown Sports. That's where he creates content. Of course, he's a former Orioles minor leaguer. He's our buddy Zach Moore, and he's back with us here on GCR. Zach, it's Glenn. What's going on, man?
Not much. How are you?
Everything is all right. It was a pleasant week. I guess I'll just sort of start generically, right? For a team that has been as maligned as the Orioles have been over the course of the last few months, and frankly, for good reason, right? Like, they have just outright struggled and have been disappointing. Where is your confidence level as we get into the postseason about this team's ability, not just against the Royals, but in general, to be able to make some sort of postseason run?
It's honestly just going to come down to pitching. The hitting looks like it figured itself out with getting the return of a lot of players and whatnot. The starting pitching looks really good, but that bullpen is the biggest question mark. They're going to go as far as that bullpen allows them to go.
I hear you say the starting pitch. First of all, I hear you say that the hitting has figured itself out, and I am just like, yeah, let me see that when the games matter, right? Like,
yeah.
let me, like, that felt good for a couple of games against New York, but, like, I don't know, the Twins were out of it going into the weekend. It's hard for me to take a whole lot away from that. Let me go to the starting pitching, right? Because I think there is reason to have confidence in Burns and Eflin specifically, but that's where my confidence ends. Like, a Game 3, a season-on-the-line situation with Dean Kramer on the mound to me, it is utter crapshoot. And I get that somebody would say, hey, it's not a guarantee with Burns or Eflin either, but I think we have good reason for confidence. Where would your confidence be if Thursday we were waking up knowing that Dean Kramer was on the mound with the season at stake?
Dean doesn't bother me, honestly. Dean is going to go out and he's going to give you a quality 4 or 5 innings. In October, that should be enough. Like I said before, it's going to come down to this bullpen.
Right. I think that's my problem. My problem is I think I've already accepted what the bullpen is, and so I need more than that from a starting pitcher.
These guys are going to have to hit flat out. They're going to have to hit because of the back end of this bullpen. And when you compare the two bullpens, it's really, really ugly. Like, right. We've got to be on our game with the starters, and they've got to come out to hit.
So, how many of the guys in the bullpen do you have faith in at the moment?
Danny and Danny.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like, I completely get it. I don't know. I can't believe I'm about to say these words. I feel like I have to have faith in Soto today. Like, today I do. I don't know if I'll feel the same way the next time we see him pitch, but today I think I have an amount of confidence in Soto.
A little bit. I mean, I've kind of looked into his numbers a little bit. They're okay. It's just, I mean, Danny's your most reliable guy. Aiken has pitched very well this year, but in very low leverage situations. He's only had like 32 total batters in a high leverage situation, and those numbers aren't great. Cano, I don't know. They said the other day that he had that elbow soreness and he missed a couple games. He has not looked good since. Maybe the day off has helped. Perez has had a lot of bad luck. A lot of like duck farts and miss hits and, infield playing back and, the ball just kind of squeaks past the pitcher. You couple that with his walks, his numbers just look bad. He's not as bad as it's been if he controls the walks. He's just had a lot of very soft contact that we just can't field.
All right. So I say all this. Is there a closer going into the playoffs? Like, are you still confident that it's a 1-run game tomorrow? They line things up for it to be Sir Anthony Dominguez, or did you get the sense down the stretch that it is more circumstantial than that?
I think they're going to play matchups.
Yeah.
Dominguez is walking too many guys in September. Perez is walking too many guys in September. Same with Soto. Soto's got like a 384 average against him. Danny's probably the guy if his elbow is ready for that situation.
Wow. Like that's kind of a state. Someone who's never done it before is the guy that you're like, okay, we'll try it out and see how it works on the playoffs.
What scares me. So in September, Perez has got a 325 average against him. A lot of it is soft contact. Dominguez 294, Soto 286. Guys are hitting the ball and they have walk issues. So it's like, who do you trust more than Danny in that situation right now?
I hear you. I hear you, man. I don't. That's a tough spot to be in. That's a really tough spot to be in going into the playoffs. Zach Moore is with us here on GCR. Zach, the Orioles won 4 out of 6 against the Royals this season, but all of those games were in April. It's been a very long time. We know Bobby Witt. We know it's nice to have a Lugo, a Reagans at the top of your rotation, but what more should we know about the Royals, and how actually did the Orioles match up with them going into the postseason?
So when you look at September, the Orioles actually had a better ERA for the starters. They were ranked 6th. Kansas City was ranked 9th. But when you look at the relievers, Kansas City had one of the worst bullpens in baseball all year. And in September, they were ranked 5th with just a 2.77 ERA, where Baltimore was ranked 29th with a 5.31. So I know this. So I posted it yesterday on Twitter. The Royals had probably one of the most abysmal hitting months that you could ever have in Major League Baseball. They only hit 205 as a team. They only scored 64 runs. They were ranked 30th across the board in most of their hitting categories. Their pitching, on the other hand, was ranked top 7 or above in pretty much every pitching category. So you're getting a team. Now, granted, they are getting Vinny Pasquantino back. That is a big bat back in the middle of their lineup. Yeah. If his thumb can hold up, that gives them a little bit more thump in the middle. It's going to come down to just keeping the ball in the ballpark. Eflin's allowed 5 home runs in September. That kind of makes me a little nervous. And Kansas City has a good fly ball rate. They're hitting the ball in the air over 40% of the time. So Eflin's really going to have to keep the ball in the park. But they're a beatable team, right? They're struggling offensively right now. Vinny's going to help a little bit. But if you can just go, if Burns and Eflin can go in and just shove it, it's going to be a pitching duel. We're looking at a very low-scoring game, very likely.
What with that in mind, what changed for Burns? Like, we were having these conversations a month ago. Like, you and I talked on Labor Day. Like, it was brutal at that point. What changed? What happened? And how was he able to correct it down the stretch?
So August has always been his worst career month, and he followed it up this year. It was probably the worst he's ever had. He says that they changed the grip on the cutter a little bit, and it's actually gotten a little bit more movement, and it's paying off. He's gotten a lot more strikeouts in September than he did in August. Guys are swinging and missing a little bit more. We got a little bit more velocity, just 1 mile per hour, but I mean, it makes a difference, and he's locating it, and that's the biggest thing to me. I don't know if the grip changed the location. He's not leaving it in the middle of the plate anymore. That's been his biggest thing.
It's made all the world of difference. That's the answer, right? Like, it's I guess this is the other thing, too. This is not a Royals team necessarily like we remember the mid-teens teams that would just steal and steal and steal and gave, like, 3 roster spots to guys whose only job was to be a base runner, like Dyson and Gore and players like that. This isn't that necessarily, but it's still a team that's going to be capable of stealing. How much of that is a concern for you going into Game 1?
It's a pretty big concern, especially if you're going to put an emphasis on it. You're going to ask Burns to change his windup potentially, or just give it up. They're going to have to pick or choose, like just give up second or change it and potentially leave the ball in the middle of the plate because he's not used to it. They're really going to have to be on their toes about that. If you just keep them off the base, I know it sounds really easy. That's going to be their biggest thing. But they have a lot of vets. That's the biggest thing that concerns me. It's not even just the speed. It's just the vets that they have coming off the bench or in the game. I mean, you look at what they have with playoff experience. You got Frazier, DeJong, Salvador, Robbie Grossman was just in the World Series last year. Mm-hmm. Tommy Pham, Yuri Gurriel has played in multiple World Series. they've got a lot of guys. They've been there. So their confidence level probably going into this series is going to be a lot higher than ours, because we're going to be sitting here looking at what we did last year and worrying about it. We're still young. That's my only concern. The speed is one thing. I think we're going to steal probably as many bases as them. I think they're going to really have Jackson Holiday run a little bit. It's just, it's going to come down to Burns. You don't have to worry about Kimbrel in the back end anymore, thankfully. Soto, Perez, Sir Anthony, Danny, they all hold runners really, really well. It's just going to come down to Burns.
So let me go there one time, which is in the postseason we're used to, hey, we're not letting starting pitchers doom us. We're going and getting them. That's the way it is. This is postseason baseball. We'll get the innings however we get the innings. Do you think it's a little bit different for the Orioles in games 1 and 2 based on what we talked about with the bullpen? Like, do you feel like they're going to have more rope if Burns, maybe it's different in game 2 with Eflin, like if they were to lose game 1, obviously, I think that changes things. But particularly in game 1, that if Burns were to get into trouble, they're going to give him every opportunity to work out of it because they feel like it almost requires at least 6 innings from Corbin Burns in order to try to win this series.
You have to have 6 innings out of Corbin Burns. There's no question. I don't think they have enough to piece together a 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning consistently, and then have to close out the rest of the series too. They absolutely have to have 6 out of Burns. And when you look at the matchups, all 3 games potentially are outstanding pitching matchups. It's going to be very low scoring in my opinion.
I think you're probably right about that. All right, let me wrap, Zach, with this. Where are you with Adley Rutschman at this point? Having everything that you've watched from him, are you confident that there's an injury? What do you make of what's going on with Adley Rutschman? And is there any part of you that wonders if James McCann should catch 2 of 3 games or something like that at this point?
I've caught a lot of slack on it for Twitter the last 2 days. I'm starting James McCann game 1 with Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
Their numbers together are very good. McCann's numbers against left-handed pitching in September and August are very good. Adley's are not. He controls the running game a little bit better. Just with him and Burns, like I said, it's going to come down to pitching, so you got to have the guy with the best page with Corbin Burns, and that is James McCann. I don't know. People are arguing with me, calling me crazy. That's fine, but you got to have your best 9 on the field. It might hurt Adley's feelings. I get it, but right now, McCann and Burns, and with him hitting left-handed pitching right now, and the way Adley's not, that is your best guy. You've got to roll with him, in my opinion.
I mean, I get it. I think that's where you're at. I can't argue with it whatsoever at this point, and that's a conversation that we'll have to have more moving forward, but at the moment, I think that's correct. All right, Zach, remind everybody where they can find your stuff.
I'm on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you name it, TikTok. It's all on the Pigtown Sports, same handle.
And that's where you can find Zach. Great content. Always appreciate it, man. We will be talking if this thing continues, and hopefully that's the case. Thanks for hopping on with me for a couple of minutes this morning, dude.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
And Zach Moore, former Orioles minor leaguer, with us this morning here on GCR. I can't argue with him. I think at the moment, McCann should start game 1. I think he's right. Now, what do you do with Adley at that point? It's trickier, right? Because does Ryan O'Hearn demand that he be in the lineup based on how he finished the season? That's obviously Ryan Mountcastle is going to be in the lineup. Santander is, of course, going to be in the lineup. It's a tough spot to be in. But I just don't think you can allow for, hey, we love this guy, he's a big part of it, to be what makes the decision for you. I think you have to make the decision that's best for winning the series, and I don't know if Adley Rutschman being in the lineup is the decision that's best for winning the series. Boy, that's a tough sentence to say, man. This is where you're at. It's the reality of it.
So you're saying you're not confident they'll even DH Adley?
I think it's between Adley and Ryan O'Hearn, right? You can say, hey, Ryan O'Hearn against a lefty is not desirable either, but at least Ryan O'Hearn has produced of late. Adley hasn't. it also sort of calls into question which one of them would you rather pull off the bench to be a pinch hitter should the Royals turn to a righty out of the bullpen. And that might be where you say, well, Ryan O'Hearn you like better as a pinch hitter in that spot because he has more of an ability to – ability is the wrong word. You have more confidence right now in him turning one around, parking one, and changing the course of the game in a moment than you do today in Adley Rutschman. So is that your argument for why you start Rutschman at DH and keep O'Hearn available off the bench? Perhaps. But how do you have any confidence in Rutschman doing anything? Hate it. I hate it here. This is not a fun conversation to have. I don't think they have to set their playoff roster until tomorrow.
Like tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's in the morning. It might be like
it's like
one they can announce there. Yeah, something like that. They made some roster moves this weekend, so I think we know that these guys, Colin Selby's probably not going to be on the playoff roster.
He looked good last night.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be
an inning. I don't know.
I don't think he's going to make it. I think that he's going to be on the cutting room floor for the playoff roster. So I do think there are some that are obvious, but they got to have one fewer position player. I'm trying to think of all the roster moves they made. I don't think they added anybody that was an obvious. Is it Kjerstad?
Oh, that gets the boot.
Gets the boot for the wild card series at least.
Looking at how many lefties the Royals have, what is it? Reagan's obviously starting, and then
they actually announced Waka for Game 3 too. They announced all three of their starters. I mean, the Orioles. They haven't announced them, but come on, based on what they did, the fact that they threw Albert Suarez yesterday, you got your answer. Their starters are, as long as they're healthy, Burns, Eflin, and Kramer. That's who's starting the potential 3 games. By the way, we did have 3 men of the match for the regular season. It's been a long time since we've seen 3 faces go up at the same time. Cade Povich, 5 2/3 shutout innings on Friday. Then Emmanuel Rivera, a couple of home runs on Saturday. And Albert Suarez yesterday. Suarez finishes the regular season 6-time man of the match. The real question about yesterday, after Albert Suarez threw 6 innings, is how available is he even to be a piggyback? It absolutely takes him out of the running for some of the stuff we had talked about with Stan on Friday. He cannot be a Game 1 or Game 2 option after throwing 6 innings. It's just not going to happen. It's a stretch to have him available for bulk on Thursday. It almost leaves. I don't think it takes him out of the equation for the wild card roster. I still think that
Suarez you're talking about.
Yeah, I still think
I think it does. I don't think
for the roster.
Yeah, I think they gotta have guys that are and it probably lines up for him to make the DS the LDS roster.
I would agree that he'd be definitively on the division series. I don't know if he'd be starting
if they go 3 games.
Oh yeah, they'd need a Game 4, right? Yeah, he'd definitely be the Game 4 starter in division series. But I don't think they take him. How many pitches did he throw
last night? I keep saying night. Yesterday he threw.
I don't. I look flat out. I did not watch the game yesterday. I said that. I acknowledge it. A lot of stuff going on.
71.
Yeah, I don't think that takes him out of being able to give you on Thursday an inning, 4 batters, something like that. I think it takes him out of a bulk. I think it takes him out of 2+ innings. But I don't think 71 yesterday completely eliminates the availability of him on Thursday. And given what your other options would be, if it was between him and Matt Bowman, him potentially being able to give you 3 outs on Thursday is more valuable than anything that Matt Bowman could give you in games 1 or 2. So I don't think it takes him out of the roster equation, but it does eliminate him from being an extra bullpen arm in general. He's sort of down to, could he help you out if Dean Kramer gets pulled early on Thursday? And I think he still might be able to. All right, of course, Ravens get a big win last night over the Buffalo Bills, 35-10. It was, as always, great to have this guy, part of our Project Game Day post-game show. He is our friend, Mr. Femi Ayanbadejo, Super Bowl champion, and he's back with us now here on GCR. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
What is going on?
What a pleasant
my video. There we go.
Yeah. Other than the weather, what a pleasant day in Baltimore, man. Like what a time this is.
It's just really gray out there, right?
Yeah, gross outside, but everything else is good at the moment.
Yeah, no, when you win, it's sunny. You know what I mean? When you win, it's always sunny.
Femi, let me ask it this way, because I feel like it's the one thing we didn't cover last night. We talk about a lot. When the Ravens are playing bully ball, everything goes well. Are we at the point where we've seen enough from this offensive line in particular that even if they can't play the same amount of bully ball next week in Cincinnati, that if it requires them to change a little bit in the game plan the way that it did week 1, that you have confidence in this group to do the other things, or is that still TBD for you?
No, I mean, my lens is not just based on 4 weeks of football. You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys out there that have been playing for the Ravens for a couple years now. I don't need to go back to ground zero to recalibrate. I do know each season has its own personality and own trends, but I have no doubt about this team's skill positions. I have no doubt about this team's capability. They're their own worst enemy when it comes to self-inflicted wounds, penalties, and execution. And I guess you could say that about every NFL team, but I feel like the Ravens' ceiling is so high, and their floor is actually really high too. You know what I mean? We know that they have lapses.
Yep.
The alleged fourth quarter collapses, right? Whatever people want to call it. I've obviously done a little bit of research on that and tried to make the point that the 3 winningest teams in football since 2018 are the Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs.
Yep.
I mean, they're doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So all that being said, I have all the confidence in this team. I love Lamar's ability to distribute and play point guard when necessary. I love Lamar's ability to become Michael Jordan when he has to. And, you know, he can be anywhere from John Stockton to Michael Jordan, and I think he does it very comfortably. I think the key is going to come down to Coach Monken. I was really thinking about this last night after we got done with our call. He's got to be locked in and really have to have a sense of flow of the game. I told you I had one critique last night, Glenn.
Yep.
What was it?
That was that first play of the second half.
First play of the second half. Why? Why are we doing that? You don't need to do that. You've got to lead. The thing that you do best, everyone knows what you're doing and they can't stop it. Why would you come out on first down and throw the football? It's you're on your 30-yard line. The only thing that could really derail you would probably be a sack or an interception. You know what I mean? Yes, fumbles can happen, of course, because Lamar fumbled earlier in the game. But when you run the football, good things happen. And I know that's a cliche in football, like all levels of football. But when you run the football, good things happen. It doesn't matter who knows, because they couldn't stop it. So that's my little critique. But if I extrapolate that thought process, that's kind of and guess what? Sometimes Coach Monken will pull a rabbit out of his hat, and it's like, that's brilliant. It worked. But when it doesn't work, guess what? We're going to sit here and we're going to critique it because it is a bit risky. And I don't even know if I call it aggressive or not. I mean, I guess you could call it aggressive, but I think that the play caller's ability to be locked in and understand and once again, Coach Monken is probably, I mean, if we think about football minds on the planet, you know, he's in the top 1%, probably the top 10th of 1%, right?
Sure.
I'm just saying that if I think about where the vulnerability could be, it's that when we get too cute and we try, like the Bills got way too cute. They had momentum, and look at what they did. That was the dumbest play call they could have made, and it just created a door to run a trick play. It ends up Josh gets blasted. It ends up being a fumble. The Ravens get the ball back, and then the Ravens never look back. That was it. The Ravens cracked the door open. The Bills took advantage of it. Then the Bills cracked the door open, and the game was over at that point. So, you know, we're talking about little details here, but to go back to answer your question, do I have faith in this offense's ability to execute and do what's required and be multiple? Absolutely.
What about just the line and specifically? Would you say that now, even if Andrew Voorhees is available next week, like you've got to keep this? It just seems like Roger Rosengarten, we talked about it last night, he's got to be your right tackle moving forward. Like he popped to me last night, and it started obviously on that Derrick Henry touchdown run where that he sealed. But I feel like you've almost got to commit to him. And I think McCary, you're a little more comfortable with him at the moment. Maybe you move him back to right guard and let Voorhees play at left. But I don't know. Maybe to me that group last night looks like the group that you roll with for a little while.
Nah, you roll with that group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes the sum of the parts are greater than the individual pieces, right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that McCary can play anywhere.
Yep.
We know he's a solid swing man, but Rosengarten's the future. And I think in one way or another, implicitly or explicitly, Coach Harbaugh to Eric DeCosta, they believe in Rosengarten, and they should. Because when he had a chance to really get settled in against the Raiders, you and I, Glenn, you made that point a couple weeks ago that he looked really good.
It really did.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that he's a young guy, and I think once again he's got a really high ceiling. And he was part of one of the best. I believe that Washington's offensive line, when he came out, was voted the best offensive line in college football, and he was one of those anchor pieces to that line. You know what I mean? So it's not an accident that this kid can play. He just needs to get his feet wet. You know, the NFL is levels up. The biggest jump you're ever going to make, they say, is from high school football to Division I, but Division I to the NFL is probably equally a jump. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's made the adaptation. It looks like he's gotten comfortable, and he played really well yesterday. I think the offensive line as a whole, we'd like a little bit less or fewer penalties, of course.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see McCary move to left guard. Voorhees has looked good. He's another young guy that's probably got a high ceiling. But I like the group that played last night, and you kind of got to run with the hot hand. And guess what? Guys are going to get dinged, and I'm sure Voorhees will get another chance at some point. And we'll see what they decide to do. Maybe they'll just go back to what they were doing before. I hope not. I hope they would leave Rosengarten at right tackle.
This was actually a question that came in on Twitter. Jeff wants to know what you think about Nate Wiggins in the action that you've seen him in the last couple of weeks.
So I thought his football instincts are undeniable. He has such great instincts. And I think in the Cowboys game, he was up against CeeDee Lamb, who I think is, for me, man, he's a top 3 receiver in the NFL, in my opinion. You know, it's probably CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Devontae Adams for me are probably the top 3 receivers in the league. And there's other guys we could say that are in that group as well. But CeeDee Lamb is not somebody you just, come and get off the couch and start, covering. And even when he got beat, he found ways to make plays. He forced a fumble. He had a chance at 2 interceptions last night. I just think he's only going to get better. I saw him come down and fill on the run. Man, he's a dog. I really like the way he plays. I like his temperament. It's like he was just born to play corner for the Ravens. His attitude, his temperament, he fits right in with the guys. Really, really high ceiling, elite speed, elite athleticism. And it's only getting started. So I'm really excited about Nate Wiggins to answer the question.
It's funny you bring up we've seen so many of those guys this season, right? You've seen Lamb, you've seen Devontae Adams. Next week it's going to be Jamar Chase, and I do think that stood out about the Bills. Like I look, not every team is going to have a CeeDee Lamb, a Jamar Chase, and there's no guarantee. Those teams don't always win the Super Bowl, right? Like the Chiefs have not had one of those guys since Tyreek. I mean, that's unfair because they've had Travis Kelce, so like that does not. But they haven't had that type of prototype wide receiver on the team. It is a different monster, and I do think that we are seeing how it's going to impact the Bills moving forward to not have that. Like when their 1A was taken away and running the football, they weren't the same team last night. They weren't able to just go say, "Hey, go win a matchup, Stephon Diggs, and we're going to throw you the ball, and we'll see what happens."
Yeah, I think athlete for athlete, anybody that watched that game yesterday, who had the better athletes on the field?
Yeah, no question.
I don't think it was close.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say any names, but there was a lot of guys on Fox Sports last week that were talking about Josh Allen when he's on the field. He's the best player on the field. And I think I made this statement last night. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson were the 2 best offensive players on the field last night, and it wasn't even close. You know what I mean?
No doubt. No doubt about it.
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, it takes 11 guys in sync to get things done. And the Bills probably are a better team, addition by subtraction, by getting rid of Stephon Diggs because of the psychological and emotional heaviness that he brings when he's not getting catered to. So I think the Bills are going to be fine. They play Houston this week. That's going to be a big test for them. If they can go into Houston and win, I think they play in Houston. Maybe Griffin, you can look at that. I know they play Houston next week. I'm not sure where the game is, but to me, that's going to decide.
It is in Houston, by the way.
It's in Houston. Okay. So remember last night we had the Bills, the Ravens, and Houston. I believe all 3 were in our top 5. I believe.
I had switched out. I had switched out Buffalo for Detroit. That was the one area where you and I. Yep.
Okay, I kept Houston at number 5, I believe. So for me, one of those is going to be out of the top 5 after that game.
Yep.
And it's just because they're two good teams, and if you end up losing 2 games in a row in the Bills case, Houston got pretty lucky to win that game against Jacksonville yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not, but it was a really good game. But Stephon Diggs was doing Diggs type things for Houston. So, it's funny. And guess what? He gets to go see his, he's going to go see his friends, or his friend's going to come see him next week. And we're going to see how that goes. But all in all, I do think that the Ravens 1 through 53 are just more talented than, their roster has got to be up there with the Niners. And who else? We know the Chiefs roster 1 through 53 isn't the best. It's the head coach, it's the quarterback, it's the defensive coordinator. It's the puzzle pieces. The Chiefs do it better than anybody in regard to just maximizing a talent, but the Ravens are right there, but probably more talented.
All right. Well, Femi, the important question, how was the weekend for BetYard AI?
Yeah, so we're starting to pivot toward more high-confidence picks, like giving out more of them. We have this approach that we've been selling our predictions to other companies this is our second year doing that, but when you launch your own platform, it's a little bit different. Like, it's iterative. You get feedback from customers. You kind of figure out what works. We had 3 pricing tiers. We're going to go down to 1 tier. We're going to give everybody all the benefits of the performance guarantee at the price of the lowest tier. We're going to do that. We haven't started doing that yet, but that's going to be coming probably in the next week. And we're going to start giving out all the high confidence picks. So, for example, the goal is to give out 5 every week, but sometimes we have 8 or 9, and we had 8 this last week, and we won 5 of them. You know what I mean? And we actually had a couple of what I call high value picks, and we hit those too. So overall, we're trending in the right direction. This season has still been a little volatile compared to last season. I'd say that we're still underperforming a little bit based on where we were last year. But I do think that in the long run, we've got years and years of back testing. We have 2 decades of data in our model. So I'm comfortable with the idea of saying that if you haven't been on board yet, the best is yet to come. And we're only going into week 5. And this is a 20-week season when you think about postseason, et cetera, and all those other things. So, yeah, I'm excited about what we're doing. BetYardAI.com.
Was there anything in particular that really surprised you or really sort of threw off what you guys had in the model?
No, you know what? I don't think anything ever really surprises me. I would say that there were a number of teams. For example, everybody was big on Green Bay, and Minnesota did their thing. Minnesota covered, right? Everybody was big on Philly. Philly got destroyed. So when I look at some of the ways that the algorithm and Vegas were leaning, there were some crazy things that happened yesterday that weren't even close. For example, we had the Ravens winning yesterday, but we had the Chiefs covering. So on the money line, we were right, but I think we basically had the Ravens winning by 2, and the spread was 2.5. You know what I mean? But the Ravens obviously blew out the Bills. So, it's a week-to-week league sometimes, and I think that at this point, when it comes to data and analytics, nothing really surprises me because it just takes a mistake to snowball into a game that could be close or a game that you think is over and then a team is back in it. It's the NFL, right? So wild things happen, but it's always pleasantly surprising in a way. And I guess I'm not trying to contradict your question, but games look like blowouts and then they end up being close.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It happens so often.
Yep. Obviously, Green Bay, Minnesota yesterday certainly qualifies that way. At BetYardAI.com, and the code still works, NFL 30, correct?
It does, yeah. And hopefully we'll have a code for you coming up soon, just for you and your audience, Glenn.
Looking forward to that. Femi, always appreciate you, brother. It's great to chat with you, man. We will talk again Sunday afternoon. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Femi Ayanbadejo, Super Bowl 35 champion. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning, as always. When we come back in, we will go over Pats on the Ass. We will recap picks, which the good news is I wasn't the low man this week.
Huh.
Somebody I owe a fruit basket to.
You owe him a fruit basket?
I mean, just...
Oh, for losing?
For being worse than I was.
And he's been...
Bad as I've been, somehow one man
has
been worse. Worse.
That's really his record on the year?
Yeah, pointed out he missed three picks by a half point this week. Thank you for your service. We'll go over that next. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Hey Baltimore, it's number 10, Arthur Millette, and I'm hoping you'll slot us in all season long for the Arthur Millette Show. We will be traveling around the region all season, giving you the chance to get to know me and my teammates. There will be some football talk and a lot more. You can watch this show live on Pressbox's Facebook and YouTube pages and listen every Friday night on 105.7 The Fan. Find out more at pressboxonline.com/Millette. The Arthur Millette Show, the only show in town that's a work of art.
The next Arthur Millette Show is Tuesday, October 1st at the Green Turtle in Towson. It's brought to you by Easy Pass and 1-800-GAMBLER.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
If you're looking at your old boiler with a jaundiced eye, it's time to call A.J. Michaels. You'll save 50% of your energy, get a $600 rebate, and an 18-month no-interest energy loan. Find us at ajmichaels.com. That's ajmichaels.com.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. There, you just saved money with Easy Pass, all without slowing or receiving a notice in the mail. Well done, thrifty driver, well done. Get your Easy Pass at DriveEasyMD.com.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue along. Monday edition of the program. A pleasant Monday here in Charm City. Hope that everybody had a great weekend. I want to give a shout-out. I had never been to the Be More Around Town pregame tailgate. Man, I couldn't have had more fun. There were lots of Bills fans. Everybody was in a good mood. I had a friend in from out of town. She brought her son with her from San Diego, and just a really great atmosphere, and couldn't have had a better time. So shout out Be More Around Town. It was also nice. Our friend Brian Snyder, who runs Be More Around Town, his wife was diagnosed with breast cancer earlier this year, and yesterday was a big fundraiser to benefit the fight against breast cancer, and so they did an amazing job. So that was fun. That was a lot of. I would do that again. I would go back. I got to duck out early, obviously, because I don't go to the games anymore. They're like, dude, why don't you just go to the game? I'm like,
Because you hate the teams, yeah.
No, it's more like if I had gone to the game last night, I would have been there until 3 a.m. Right? Like
you would have been there until 1 at the latest.
I can't go and not like do some more work. Like this is the problem if you like take a seat in the press box. Is like, and that's the other problem too. I would say, hey, I don't have to do that, but we got to do the post game thing. So I can't just be sitting in the stands. I know Rita does that sometimes, but because I've got to do the hosting and do all the reads and stuff like that, I have to be somewhere where I could have some quiet space. So I'd have to sit in the press box. And then if you're going to sit in the press box, you got to do.
What if we talk to Rita? You guys can rotate. Maybe.
Oh, she's next. Dick. She's in charge.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's.
She drives.
I think it's unlikely
and you get to
that I'll
scream
be
your head
going
off in
again.
the stands.
I think that
when the bad calls happen.
I would say probably not going to be my play. Probably not, but I appreciate the thought.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Hey, join us for the 36th Annual Maritime Magic, the best annual benefit on the Baltimore waterfront, celebrating and supporting the Living Classrooms Foundation. It's this Friday, October 4th, from 6 to 10 p.m. Enjoy a night of delicious food and drinks from Baltimore's top restaurants and caterers, plus live music by the Motet. Dress in festive casual attire and soak in the stunning views of the Baltimore Harbor from the Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Maritime Park and Museum. Tickets and sponsorships are available at livingclassrooms.org/maritime-magic. All right, let's do this, not because I want to, but because it's the next thing on the schedule. Not a great week, but a couple of folks had good weeks, and that's enough right now. You have a good week. You are in great shape in our picks contest. Griffin did not have a good week.
No, I didn't. And it's it's bad. It's bad.
It's really bad. So he goes from first. He goes from in first place to the bottom half of the table.
Was I in first?
Yeah.
I was tied for first.
You were tied for first. I remember.
It was nice.
Yeah. Oh, you're still plenty ahead of me.
It felt pretty good while I was there.
Yeah, I bet it did. All right, let's go over it. Indiana was favored by a touchdown over Maryland. So Maryland ultimately looks like they get blown out, right? Like if you watch the game, you probably know it's not quite that simple. It's a couple of plays late where they just didn't get stops that ends up being the difference. The bigger problem was their defense was getting the job done early. Like you could try to pin it on Maryland's defense and say, well, that was disappointing. But early on, they were getting the job done. They were creating turnovers, and Maryland wasn't doing anything with it offensively. And then what was a close game ends up snowballing in the fourth quarter and looks like a little bit more of a blowout. And look, I mean, they did score the touchdown late to make it 42-28. So I guess it doesn't look like a blowout as much as it got away from. It was down 42-21 in the fourth quarter. Not the end of the world because, as we talked about last week, maybe Indiana really is just that legit under Curt Cignetti. And boy, all the players he brought in from James Madison look really good, man. Like they all. That doesn't look like that's that significant of a difference between playing in the Big Ten. And that we've talked about a lot. That might just be recruiting now, is that you find players from the Sun Belt or from Conference USA or wherever that are really good, and you try to bring them in as veterans into a higher league. Indiana might be that good. Maybe. The bigger issue for Maryland is the math to them just getting bowl eligible again starts to get a little hairy. They have their bye this week. They come out of it by playing Northwestern at home. Like that becomes you cannot. So that would get them a fourth. Then they still have to find two more. USC at home. At Minnesota. That almost goes into this conversation now. On the road at Oregon, probably not. The home game at Rutgers, we've always thought was like, that's how you're getting there. You can put that in the win column. Well, Rutgers just beat Washington on Friday night. Rutgers, I believe, is 4-0.
Washington's not as good as they were last year.
I agree with that. But, like, Rutgers all of a sudden is not the go ahead and chalk that up as a win. Like, the path to – you want to say, hey, it's not the end of the world if Maryland just gets bowl eligible this year and then starts focusing on life with their next quarterback, which we all assume Malik Washington – I don't think he's coming to Maryland to not start on day one. Like, I think he's coming here because he's been given some amount of assurance is probably the wrong word, like some amount of confidence that he's the starter quickly. So you want to say, hey, even if they take a step back this year and they only get bowl eligible, they get there. Everything surrounds Malik Washington moving forward. They got to make sure they get bowl eligible, and that is not a guarantee. These two games, home against Michigan State and on the road at Indiana, were supposed to be games that you could put in the win column.
Or at least, very least.
Yeah, at least split, right, in order to get bowl eligible. So that becomes a bit more perilous. It was obviously perilous. We were going to have to just stop picking Maryland games because it's giving Gonzalez free points, and right now he and I are battling at the bottom of the table, and I just can't have it. Steck, James, John, and Little Rock. I guess I could. And there'll be some games where I definitely would. KZ, Kyle, and Ryan are all in Indiana.
Games they cover too, so we know that.
Yeah, I'm not going to. There's no Maryland game next week. That's good news. We're picking Navy Air Force this week, so I won't have to worry about that. Penn State, Illinois. Would have been nice if somebody told me that Penn State didn't have a kicker. Just would have been a nice. They end up missing 2 field goals that should have been made, and they don't even bother to try on another one. In a game that was 14-7, a kick that was like 30-some yards that would have put them up by 2 scores, they didn't even try to kick it. Those 9 points, pretty significant by the time we got to the end. Illinois covers because Penn State was favored by 19. In a game where Illinois never did anything offensively. Luke Altmaier was completely neutralized, and they still didn't cover. On Illinois, John Little Rock, KZ, Kyle, Paul Valley, and Ryan Schell. Alabama, Georgia, wild. Oh, my God, what a game.
I was like...
I mean, it was over, right? Like, yeah, I just said... I actually flipped over to Penn State, Illinois, because I was like, well, I'm not winning this one, so what the hell. Then all of a sudden, Twitter starts to inform me, like, yeah... It was 28-0 Alabama.
It was, I mean, yeah, it was completely
just over.
There was no reason, like, it was like, oh, I think when it was like 21-0, I was like, I should live bet Georgia, right?
Yeah, right.
Do something with Georgia here, and then they scored like right away again. Okay. Alabama did, and it was like, all right, there's no point, and it's over. It's over.
Georgia comes charging back. All of a sudden, it gets interesting. All of a sudden. In the fourth quarter, they take the lead, which lasted for, a
minute.
Not even.
Yeah.
A play. One play. Ryan Williams, dude, that kid is unreal, man. Ryan Williams he's 17 years old.
Does he even have a driver's license?
I don't know. Who knows? Raindrops, dry. Wait. How does the Olivia Rodrigo song go?
I don't know which one.
The driver's license, dog.
Hold on, let me think.
I can't. That's a great song.
Yeah,
I know. I'm just too old.
She's got too many that.
That one stands out still.
Yeah, but that was like her first hit though.
It was. That's true. Alabama wins 41-34, so they of course not only cover but win outright in that one. And so I went 0 for 3 on college games this week. Steck, James, John and Little Rock, Kyle Ottenheimer, Ryan Schell, all on Alabama. New Orleans, Atlanta. Yeah, I thought to myself, Atlanta's at home. I'll just go with Atlanta, right? Like, if they win, they're going to win by a field goal.
Yeah.
And they did win by 2 points. James, KZ, Kyle Ottenheimer all get a point there on New Orleans. Spread was 2. Spread was 2.5. They won by 2. God.
So I missed by a half a point on 2 on the week.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that happens. Minnesota, Green Bay. Another kind of like Alabama, Georgia almost, where like you look up and Minnesota's up 28-0 and you're just like, what the hell is happening here? And then Green Bay finally remembers to football. They outscore Minnesota 29-3 the rest of the way. Problem is, that's not enough to even win, more or less to cover a 2.5-point spread. Griffin, one of the 2 games he got right all week.
I only got 2 right.
Yeah, James. Yeah, not great. John Proctor, who, by the way, got fewer. That was his one, as well as
the Minnesota Vikings.
KZ. Yep, that was the only one. Paul Valley, Ryan Schell were all on Minnesota. Philly, Tampa.
I think I had a moment where I was like, I thought the line was flipped for some reason, and I was like, oh, I didn't get the Vikings game right either. Like I thought I had the Vikings minus 2.5, I think, for a minute. So I thought,
okay.
So I thought I was over heading into the Ravens game, and
yuck. Philly, Tampa. Yeah, I mean Tampa. After we had written them off last week, they come back to life. They look great. Andrew Steck.
Is it just the Broncos? Are the Broncos good?
No, we're not going there. I know they went to New York and beat the Jets, but that was a miserable, rainy game. I can't learn anything.
Their
from
line
that.
miss one or two kicks.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything from that yet. Look, the Broncos might not be abysmal. That might be what we're learning, is that they might be competent, but it is a what it is kind of situation. On Tampa, Andrew Steck, Griffin Bass. Those are your two. Jeremy, Joe Serpico, John and Little Rock, and Paul Valley. Washington, Arizona. All the smarts. Dude, you got to ride Arizona here. Commanders.
Most of us fell for it.
They're a problem. They're a problem. And they blew out the Cardinals on the road. So, John Proctor. Hey, John Proctor. Wait a second. I thought John Proctor only got one.
He
must have gotten two.
He picked the Bills.
I know, but he got the Minnesota Green Bay.
Huh.
Right, Proctor picked Minnesota, correct?
Yeah.
That's what the chart says.
Yeah, it does.
And if he picked you were trying to steal a point from Proctor.
No, I didn't. So I think John actually.
Oh, John stole a point from himself?
Yeah.
John, what are you doing, dog? What are you doing? Did John not?
Sure. I don't, hold on, or unless we end somebody in. Let me see. John had.
Wait. Yeah, John picked the Commanders.
Yeah, he picked the Commanders and the Vikings. Yeah, so
did we definitively pick the Vikings?
Mm-hmm.
Did you double check his picks?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then he's good. He got two. Chill out, John. Chill out.
I don't know why, but something's wrong with the something's wrong with the math though in the commands in the Excel sheet.
No, it's not changing his record. All right. Well, you got to get with. I think he's listening, so you and he can work on that. Anyway, yeah. So John got that one. Paul and Ryan Shell were also on Washington. Kansas City. Thank God, my saving grace for the week. Knowing that Kansas City doesn't cover large spreads, they just don't do it, and they didn't. Spread was 7.5. They won by 7. Bless them. Is there an update yet today on Rashee Rice?
I think they. I mean,
everybody's talking about it like it was.
Everybody
was
assuming
99. That he was done for the year, which obviously hurts them. But
somewhere.
They are slated to get Hollywood Brown back, so that might help a little bit on that. Look, man, they're still 4-0, so it's kind of what it is. The Chiefs do win, but they don't cover the 7.5. And so I get that one, as does Jane. I get that one. Stecca got that one. Joe, John, and Ryan Shep. Oh, hello. And then Baltimore Buffalo. That was interesting for a moment, but ultimately the Ravens cover handily. And so that one goes to myself, Griffin, Jeremy, Joe, KZ, as well as Paul and Ryan. So where does that leave us for the week? I've got to make sure of this, because now I'm starting to think that
he said he's actively changing it, so we'll find out.
The question is, did we just grade that game wrong altogether? Because now I'm starting to think that I might have only won 2.
He thinks he got the Green Bay was minus 2.5. So
yeah, I think he had everybody wrong, and I'm actually screwed.
What did I say?
I was feeling good that I was 2 games clear of John.
Yeah,
I only got 2 games right this week.
I sent Green Bay minus 2.5, so we're playing that. Was the line the other way? It was Green
Bay.
No,
it was Green Bay minus 2.5. Okay. That's correct. Yeah, Green Bay minus 2.5 was the line. So the board was wrong, and I thought, hey, at least I'm not worse than John Proctor. Well, as it turns out,
right,
I'm exactly as bad as John Proctor.
And I got 3 points.
Yeah, you got 3.
All right.
I only got 2. I tied with Proctor for low man. Oh, God. Well, Jeremy also went 2-7 this week, so bless him for that.
Ends up being a great week for Shell.
Yeah, things get dramatically worse. Yeah, Ryan Shell ends up having a 7-2 week.
And now he's got a 2-game cushion.
Yeah, he's in first place by himself atop the table. 2 games behind him, Kyle, James, and Paul. 3 games behind him, John and Little Rock and you, right? You are still in the top half. You got that going for you. Look at you. Andrew Stecca, 4 games back. Jeremy, Joe, and KZ, 5 games back. And bringing up the rear, myself and John Proctor. Gross.
It's not as bad as 14 and 28,
gross.
John. So, yeah.
Gross. Oh, God. 15 and 27. This is an abomination, man.
At least you're hitting more than a third of your pick.
Yeah, there's that. Ugh. Wretched. I mean, these are ungodly, unseemly numbers. All right, let's do Pats on the Ass. Pats on the Ass is brought to you by the Arthur Millette Show, which returns tomorrow night. We'll be at the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson. Come hang out with us and Arthur Millette. So here's the deal. The baseball game's at 4. So you could get there early, watch the baseball game at the Green Turtle in Towson, and after the game, stick around for the Arthur Millette Show. If the game is like going on and it's close, I promise you we'll delay the start of the show by a few minutes to watch the end of the game, right? Like I promise you we'll work that out. I'm going to text Arthur about it today. I might even recommend a 7:30 start, but we'll see how he feels about it. It's tomorrow night, Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson. That's the Arthur Millette Show. You can find out more PressBoxOnline.com/Millette. That's MAULET for the Arthur Millette Show tomorrow night. Looking forward to seeing you there. Hopefully we're celebrating a big Orioles win. Hopefully everybody's in a good mood because of it. And we are definitively celebrating a big Ravens win. And, 4 weeks have passed. This could be a very good week for our buddy Arthur Millette. Could be the week that we see him back onto the practice field, and who knows, maybe even on the football field this week. We will find out. But come join us tomorrow night. Arthur and a special guest will be with us at the Green Turtle in Towson. All right, you know how this works. Pats on the ass, pick 5 Ravens. 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach, whoever you would like. You take that group of 5, you rank them 5-1, with number 1 being your man of the match. There were so many candidates this week. I feel really bad. There's 2 guys I ended up leaving off altogether. I left off Lamar Jackson altogether.
Wow.
The fumble ended up being the difference there in why I chose. There were a couple other guys that I chose over him. I also left off Zach Orr, who I really wanted to put on the list, but I had 3 other offensive players that were on the list, and that's just the way that it goes. One of those offensive players, my number 5, is Justice Hill, who's been phenomenal. And his rise, look, Rita brought it up last night. Still don't know how you'd feel about him in zone read. There's still some issues, some lingering stuff with Justice Hill and zone read, but everything else, man, he was their leading receiver last night, and just giving Derrick Henry a bit of a spell. Justice Hill, phenomenal. This was also tough because it meant I didn't end up having an offensive lineman on the list either, and that sucked because I really wanted to put Roger Rosengarten on the list last night. But yeah, Justice Hill's my number 5.
Yeah, he just misses my list too. So my list ends up looking pretty similar to last week's. I subbed out Falele for somebody else. I put Lamar as my number 5, just because, like you said, as far as Lamar Jackson games go, relatively modest. He still ran the ball really well, had 2 touchdowns, but only 150 passing yards. But he was still,
he's Lamar Jackson. I get it.
So Lamar was my number
5. My number 4 is Kyle Hamilton. I wanted to go Owe or Ajabo there, but ultimately, Kyle Hamilton just being all over the field again and flying around and making plays and recovering the fumble, the whole deal. He just looks like Kyle Hamilton again. He looks like a game changer. Kyle Hamilton's number 4.
He was my number 4 as
Look
well.
at that. Look at that.
Just setting the tone. From the or it wasn't the first play. It was the second play of the game.
Yep.
Just flying up out of nowhere, shedding the block and then hitting Kincaid behind the line of scrimmage for a stop that forced 3rd down. And yeah, it was a vintage Kyle Hamilton game.
My number 3 is Patrick Ricard, man. I can't say it enough. Dude, he is on another level at the moment. And then you add in on top of that him wrestling. You could say at that point the game was already out of hand and that touchdown doesn't necessarily matter. Maybe. But, not something that I'm interested in learning about either. Right? I have no interest in revisiting the demons of, you were an inch away from putting them away.
And then we're breaking down each, step by step. This is how it happened.
Yep, 100%. So on top of him just being an absolute stone-cold killer as you're getting the ball down the field, he then wrestles a football away from 2 humans in order to get a touchdown to boot. So Patrick Ricard is my number 3.
He was my number 3 as well.
How about that? Yeah. How about that? My number 2 is Kyle Van Noy. I don't know what else I can say. Kyle Van Noy is a hero. I don't know what other word there is. Dude fractures an orbital bone. Looks like he's not going to be playing football for some time. Instead, plays maybe the best football of his life in the 3 weeks that follow with 6 sacks. Strip sack last night that was definitively the play of the game. Changed the only moment where momentum was going the other way. Kyle Van Noy is number 2.
Yeah, just another day at the office for Kyle Van Noy. A couple of sacks, several QB pressures and hits. Just Kyle Van Noy, number 2.
Yeah, he's really, really good. And, of course, at number 1 is where we find Tylan Wallace, who had, I think, a couple of snaps.
Yeah. I had Deontay Hardy, actually. For
yeah?
Catches.
Okay.
Just,
All right.
Just not turning the ball over.
Right, looking good.
Big.
Looking good. Yeah, obviously, look, Derrick Henry's number 1. I mean, what the hell else would we say? Derrick Henry's number 1 because Derrick Henry's number 1. I don't feel like that requires a whole lot of explanation at this point. I feel like everybody could get on board and tend to agree with it. I was looking over some of the other lists that have come in. Reminder that if you get your list in at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter, you will be registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn. Someone is walking away with $50 to the Costas Inn. Global Ravens, who I don't know, wanted to give some love to Brandon Stevens. So he said to me, number 5 would come down to either Stevens or Orr. It didn't pop. I would have to go back and watch more of the film to see if I think that he had moments, but I don't know. I didn't think that he.
I mean, it felt like he was giving Keon Coleman a chance on a lot of these plays. Like Keon Coleman didn't come down
the
with
one,
catches,
right? Well, no, he can't. The only one that he really dropped was the one to the left side. Like that, I don't think there were others that he genuinely should have made. I think that was the only one that I would register. But he did make a couple of catches later on in the game, if you want to say. I don't remember that it was definitively Stevens each time. Also had Travis Jones at number 4.
Okay.
Other than there's
definitely 5 guys better, but I could hear.
Travis Jones has been great in general. That part 100% has been true. The tough part for me with Travis Jones is the one play was him and Owe getting tangled up. And that was what led to Josh Allen being able to scramble out to find Khalil Shakir.
He made up for it when he just leveled Allen.
100%. 100% made it up for it. There's no doubt about that.
Proctor was trying to put Flacco on his list.
God love him. God love him. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate your service. See what the story is on Anthony Richardson moving forward. But yes,
they said he could have came back in. Apparently, is what I saw.
Yeah,
after
I did
the
not.
game.
I did not know
Somebody
that.
said that,
but is that when you say somebody said that?
I mean, he did not. His pads were definitely on the rest of the game as well. Like he was on the sideline wearing his pads. Let me find out where I saw this. Unless I don't know. Unless it was something like Scott Hansen just said it in passing, and I overheard it.
Okay.
Anthony Richardson. I mean, I heard it somewhere, but they said that, and I was like,
I had not.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him for leaving Joe in.
By the way,
they wanted to win.
There are 2 quarterbacks in the history of football that have thrown 30 career pass touchdowns.
Here we go. So Rappaport tweeted after the game around like 6:30. He said, "Sounds like Anthony Richardson could have come back in if necessary. A good sign."
Okay. All right.
So I guess they're saving him as an emergency quarterback. I guess I don't know how.
2 quarterbacks all time that have thrown 30 passing touchdowns in their career against the Pittsburgh Steelers, including the playoffs. They are.
I guess it would be Joe Flacco.
Yes, Joe Flacco is now one of them.
30 touchdowns against the
including the
Steelers.
playoffs.
Andrew Dalton.
Andrew Dalton? That's what we're going with? No, it's not Andy Dalton.
Against the Steelers. Tom Brady.
It is Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady and Joe Flacco, the only 2 quarterbacks of all time.
Anytime Tom Brady can be on a list with Joe Flacco, I think he's got to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, right? That's got to be a real honor for him. How about Tom Brady going after Baker Mayfield yesterday on the Fox broadcast? I guess apparently Baker Mayfield's made a comment about, I was brought in, guys weren't having a lot of fun when I arrived or something like that. And Tom Brady, went off on him on the broadcast. You see, to me, fun is, winning Super Bowls.
I'm going after him. I mean, that's
bubbling. Listen to it. it didn't feel just like Tom was trying to be silly and have fun. It felt like he might have taken that a little personal. Like it was interesting. Anyway, yeah, get me your pats on the ass.
Okay, let me see.
Okay.
I think this would be it. Okay, yeah.
Dikembe Mutombo passed away today. Oh, that sucks. Man, I actually got to have Dikembe Mutombo on the show once. He was at the Sports Humanitarian Awards, and what a remarkable human, remarkable man. That's really sad news. Really sad news. The great Dikembe Mutombo, who, of course, a generation of humans knows for a commercial and no.
That would be my generation.
Yeah. That's a huge bummer, man. That's a giant bummer. All right. Oh, did you find it? Okay, go ahead. This is Tom Brady on the Fox broadcast yesterday.
Our guy here said, quote, they wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for guys who weren't having as much fun. It's funny because you've made this environment for me very stressful up here in the booth, so I understand where he's coming from.
Do you feel it?
No.
Feel the stress? No. Well, I was going to say, I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. So there was a mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids.
Yeah, so as you were saying, go ahead. That's you feel like I feel like there's more in there to say.
There's a way to approach this game, and it's that with the right mindset and try to push each other outside of our comfort zone. And great teammates do that. You come in, I have someone like Gronkowski, I have someone like Evans. There's high expectations for us. We got to make sure we go out there and deliver.
The competitive juice is still flowing.
It's still in there.
I love
no
it.
apologies.
There's Tom Brady reacting to Baker Mayfield saying guys weren't having a lot of fun. It was a legitimate. I think that was the first real Tom Brady moment as a broadcaster. Like the first moment where I was like, you know what?
And Kevin Burkhardt kind of trying to poke some more fun at him.
Yeah,
Kevin not going for it.
No, Kevin Burkhardt actually I think did the exact right thing there. Like, okay. I think Kevin Burkhardt might have been taken aback by how direct. This is obviously something they had talked about beforehand, like we're going to dress.
Right. Well,
and it felt like Kevin Burkhardt,
I just mean his initial comment, I guess.
Well, yeah, but I just started. But then it sounded like he heard how direct Tom Brady was being, and he was like, all right, I don't want to end this. Like, we're getting something out of him right now.
They went into a booth, like a shot of both of them.
Yeah, like we're getting something of value out of this, and I like that. Look, man, things are going well in Tampa other than the Denver game, so Baker Mayfield deserves credit, but that was good broadcast. There was some value to that, which, sports broadcasting doesn't always have a ton of that. Continue to get me your pats on the ass at Glenn Clark Radio on Twitter. Again, everyone who does will be registered to win a $50 gift card to the Costas Inn, where sadly they do not serve haggis. I've got bad news. There is no haggis available at the Costas Inn. But if you'd like, you can call this man, and I think he'll invite you over to his house, and he'll share his with you. He is our buddy Jermey Conn, and he's back with us now here on GCR. How you feeling, pal?
I'm good. It lingers a little longer than you'd like, some of that taste in your mouth. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, you've had tastes that have lingered longer than that.
Plenty of cases
right.
lingered longer. Yeah, but overall, like I said, man, it was interesting. I don't mind trying new things, but not sure I'm going to have any of that ever again.
Yeah. All right, pal. Well, first of all, thank you for having a 2-7 week this week, so I don't feel quite as bad about my own 2-7 week. I appreciate you showing.
Did I go 2-7?
Yeah, 2-7, like I did. You and I both did not get a single college game. It was a rough week. Rough week. Which I don't know how you did otherwise, because Andrew.
I had a good week.
That's what Andrew Stecca was telling me last night, that he made more money than he's ever made betting this week because of you. So the dichotomy of the fact that you had a great week and yet went 2-7 in our league, it's wild.
Yeah, now I'm kind of irritated that I'm thinking about it, because my favorite play this week was the Ravens. I kept telling anybody who would listen that they were going to blow out the Bills, and I had the Bears. I don't remember what all games we picked, but the Falcons game is a swing game, right? 2.5, and it lands on 2.
2, yeah.
Anyway,
you had Green Bay. Your saving grace was Tampa. You had Tampa, but you also you had Arizona. You had KC. There's a swing 7.5-point game. It was a 7-pointer.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the answer.
That happens. What are you gonna do?
It does indeed happen. We'll save Ravens conversation. Let's get into the Orioles. Where's your confidence level? Not just for this, we'll start with this series, but that they can do anything of substance during the course of the postseason.
Yeah, look, I love the way it sets up. So you get the Royals instead of the Tigers. So you don't get the Cy Young coming in here in game one and trying to deal with that. I know Cole Reagans is a really good pitcher, a lefty that can get a ton of strikeouts, but he can get wild at times. And I think if you outlast him, you'll be in a good position. What I mean by that is you don't have to beat a starting pitcher. You just have to make him throw a lot of pitches and try to get to the bullpen. The one thing I know about Kansas City is Kansas City was a 500 team. If you take away, and I know you can't, they were 12-1 against the White Sox. So they're a 500 team other than that. So the Orioles should be able to win 2 out of 3 at home. And then the fact that you would get the Yankees makes me happy because I think they match up extremely well with them. The one concern I have, ironically, is I don't think Zach Eflin's looked as good against the Yankees as he possibly can. He's walked quite a few guys there, which that typically is not his thing.
Yeah, he doesn't do. Right.
But I think they're in a really good position, man. So I'm excited. And the weird thing is because I have a sleep study tomorrow night, and Wednesday is my anniversary, I don't know that I'm going to get to go to any of the games.
Oh, that's a bummer. That's a bummer. What's ironic is the only one that I would be able to go to is Thursday because we've got the Arthur Millette show tomorrow, and then Wednesday, Rita and I I guess I could go for a little while, but I don't really feel like doing that. I also had kind of said I don't think I'm going to go until the ALCS. I think that's I've been to enough playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going back until it's the ALCS. I did this with the Ravens years ago. I was like, I'll be there when you go to the Super Bowl. That's where I'll be. I've done all the other things. I'll be there when they get to the Super Bowl. And they did. They went to New Orleans, and I went. And I sort of said, now I'm good. I don't need to go to a game for a while, right? I'm in this weird place where with playoffs, if I'm going to be spending money, I'm going to choose to wait until the ALCS in order to do it.
Yeah, and I kind of get that feeling too. There's that excitement of it happening, and it's relatively quick. And then you, of course, have today's doubleheader, which affects the National League.
Yep.
The Padres, by the way, one of the smartest teams in baseball. Whether people realize it or not, they lost on purpose yesterday. So that makes the Braves possibly have to pitch Chris Sale today if they don't win Game 1. So, and then the weird anomaly today, if anyone gets swept, Arizona gets in.
Yeah, and that's the weird part too. Is whoever wins Game 1, how much are they even trying in Game 2? Right? That's sort of the weirdest part about this day.
Yeah, the Braves, if they win Game 1, Chris Sale's not going to start Game 2.
Right.
Because it means nothing, and then they probably go to some hodgepodge bullpen game.
Right.
And the same thing if the Mets win, then they have to throw Sale. But how confident would you feel the Mets sweeping a doubleheader when they're the underdog in both games? So
correct. And having to face,
yeah, kind of weird.
Yep, 100%, very weird. Here's my issue with feeling confidence, and I get what you're saying about the matchups. It still, to me, requires the Orioles to get something from this bullpen, and I have so little faith in. We're going into the postseason, and how many bullpen arms does this team have that you have even a decent amount of confidence in going into the playoffs?
Look, Kalum's one of those guys. Yep. I know, it's kind of tough to say, who you really want to rely on here. You're going to have to go back to the usual suspects like Soto and then, of course, Sir Anthony. I almost didn't call him Sir for a second. Yeah. No, I think there are pieces here that can get it done, but it's not like before when we were in the postseason and you had Bob, where it was Britton, O'Day, and Brock. You felt like the last 3 innings of the game were shut down, but nobody was scoring. Here, it's going to be a little bit different. So I don't think you can just solely rely on your bullpen, but I do think the bullpen is going to be stronger because you'll be able to pitch whoever those best guys are as much as you want.
Yeah, somebody's got to be good in order to go back to them, and that's the problem that I have. I don't think they have a closer going into the play. My gut tells me that it's absolutely closer by committee matchup, whatever it looks like. Yes, they're going to save Dominguez for late if they can, but I don't think they can put Dominguez into a tie game late. I don't think that's an option at all. The thing where
so weird. They've been putting Cano in early, right? We've seen him at 6 innings a couple of times.
I think that Soto to them might be. That might be the closest thing they have to a closer going into the playoffs to me is Soto, where they try to hold him as much as they can. I just don't know how you can put Dominguez into 1-run or tie games at this point.
Yeah, look, there's definitely some scary options that you're going to have. I mean, look, you're hoping that your ace Corbin Burnes comes out and looks like that here in Game 1.
Oh, I almost think that like this series to me is decided by whether or not you get at least 6 quality innings out of Corbin Burnes, because I don't think that you can piece your way through with that. Like if you have to go get Corbin Burnes in the 4th inning tomorrow, I think the series is over. I mean, it's not really over, but I just don't think there's enough math there to get through that if you don't get at least 6 innings of Corbin Burnes giving you a genuine chance to win.
Yeah, and look, Bobby Witt won the batting title, and we all know how good he is, and he can definitely wreck a series. And, you know, people love these narratives as their the revenge narrative of not getting drafted by the Orioles. I don't think that's still sitting in his craw, but, you know, it is something that people love to talk about.
Yeah, and
I just think that
it is an awkward, but it is an awkward juxtaposition though going into this series where like I don't know that you can start Adley Rutschman in Game 1, and that's an awkward conversation that's going to come up. Like ESPN's going to talk about it on the broadcast. That's going to happen, and it don't feel great at the moment. I'm not trying to say that it's like this moment tells the entirety of the story. And as we talked about before, if they draft Bobby Witt, do they have Gunnar Henderson? Probably not, right? Like that, we can do all of this stuff, but at the moment, it is a blowout in the Bobby Witt Adley Rutschman conversation.
Yeah, which up until this year it wasn't that because of Adley's struggles here this year.
Yep.
Like we talked about it for the first 2 months. Like you look at Adley Rutschman and what he's been doing, you're going, hey, nobody's talking quietly how good of a year he had or how good of a season he's having, and then all of a sudden, like nobody was talking about it, and then he starts to fade, and his numbers didn't look half bad initially just because of how good he did in the first 6 weeks. But man, it's dropped off. And then, like I talked to Ryan Ripken about it, like what could this be? We've talked about could he be in the midst of contract negotiations and feeling the pressure about that because they're discussing money and which way they should go. So look, I think there's a lot of things that factor into it, but I think Adley has to be out there.
I don't know that he catches tomorrow. I think you have to catch McCann in Game 1 with Corbin Burnes. I think you have to. And maybe you DH Adley. McCann's hit lefties of late. McCann's been better with Burnes. If they're going to try to run on Burnes, and you would expect them to, McCann's been better in that. I just think that you have to catch McCann in Game 1 at this point.
And I'm fine with that. But, well, first off, it works out because you have a lefty on the mound.
Right.
And Ryan O'Hearn isn't going to be in the game, right?
Correct.
You shouldn't be.
Yeah,
you should have Mountcastle out there.
Yep.
But as you pointed out, the one thing, there are 2 things that Kansas City does fairly well. All right, the top of their lineup is really good. Now they're missing Vinny Pasquantino, which they're saying he might be able to come back, but I don't know if he's got enough reps or anything for this series. And he comes back and he's what you expect. The other thing they do really well is they steal bases, and a ton of them. I mean, because when Bobby Witt gets on, he's running. Maikel Garcia has multiple games this year with 3 or more stolen bases. And that is a scary proposition in Game 1 with Corbin Burnes on the mound, who is the worst pitcher in Major League Baseball at holding runners on.
Yeah. That's other than all that, though. Other than all that.
I mean, to pee in your Cheerios. Yeah, everything other than that, we're golden, baby.
Who do you think's winning the World Series, by the way?
Oh, who do I think? Well, I mean, God, that's such a tough one because I don't really like any of the teams in the American League to make that run. I'm not a big Yankee fan the way that some people are to make the run. I would look more Houston and Cleveland. I mean, look, I have a little bit of confidence in the Orioles, but it'd be nice to see them catch fire. I do think the road to the World Series sets up well for them. But I like the way that a lot of these National League teams are playing. I mean, the Padres have been playing some really good baseball. They've got frontline pitching. They've got a great bullpen, and they don't strike out a lot. So they're a team that I can't believe I'm saying it. I might hang my hat on them. And the team that nobody's talking about that I think we should is Milwaukee. Really good team. I understand the frontline pitching is not what you'd want, but their bullpen's really good. So they can go to a couple of those games. And they have a bunch of contact hitters, guys that steal bases. That's the big thing for them is I feel like you're going to see them running. There's like 4 or 5 guys in their lineup that just absolutely run every time they get on first.
I gotta be honest with you, I haven't even thought about them. So that's very interesting. All right, Jermey Conn.
Look, Sal Frelick, Jackson Churio, Bryce Terang. I mean, this is all without Christian Yelich, and I'm not even naming their best hitters. They've got some power in that lineup too.
That's a great point. That is a really, really good point. All right, Jermey Conn with us here on GCR. Takeaways from last night. What does that tell us about the Ravens? What did it tell us about the Bills?
You know, I just feel like the NFL's drunk this year. Like, what do we know? And again, look, this comes from somebody I get paid to be a prognosticator, and sometimes you're watching the NFL going, what the hell is going on? Like, this doesn't even make any sense. But it played out exactly how I thought, and I know I'm probably in the minority here, but the Buffalo Bills have the smallest defensive front in the league. I didn't expect an 87-yard touchdown run to start the game, but you'll gladly take it. I thought Derrick Henry looked great. Thought Lamar kind of managed the game fairly well, and they played amazing. And then when you start looking at it, you start to question a little bit about what's going on with Mark Andrews. I thought the defense looked really good. The big thing, though, is you got this W. You don't get to sit here and celebrate as much as you like, because if you lose to Cincinnati on Sunday, you're right back. You put them back in the division where they have an opportunity now because they've won 2 in a row. You have a chance to bury them in their home. And I think going in there, I mean, Lamar has a ridiculous record of being an underdog or less than a 3-point favorite of winning games and covering.
By the way, and they opened up the Ravens. I think I saw were 2.5-point favorites on the road this week, which is.
I saw it at 1.5 when it first opened up. That the Bengals were favored by 1.5.
Yeah, that made more sense.
2.5.
Right. So now that explains it more, because I said when we looked this up, I'm like, I would think the Bengals would be about 1-point favorites in this game. And then we looked it up, and we saw that it was all the way up to 2.5 Ravens. I was like, what the hell? So it makes more sense.
As soon as it came out, some heavy hitters put money on the Ravens.
That makes way more sense to me, because I was very confused by it starting there. That's wild, man.
But, you know, like the other thing that's frustrating, again, all the positives from yesterday and the things that you like, I mean, we still got to get past this Harbaugh calling 2 timeouts. Like, what is that? Coming out flat. And, I mean, there were opportunities for them to get back in the game. But Buffalo did some stupid things too. So, I mean, all's not like won and all's not happy in Whoville right now. They still got a lot of things to figure out on that front.
I hear you saying that, right? Like, the timeout thing is inexcusable. There's no getting around it. It's inexcusable. And obviously John Harbaugh's fortunate the Ravens won the game going away, and so nobody's really going to talk about it today. The other side of it to me is I still need to know if this offensive line will hold up in a situation where you are forced to get away from bully ball. Like, it's clear over the last 2 weeks they can handle their business just fine when they're able to do the bully ball stuff and just get downhill and give the ball to Derrick Henry and go road grade. But it's the week 1 stuff. Like, what happens if you do fall behind by 10 points in the second half and you've got to get away from bully ball a little bit? That I still need to see how this offensive line holds up in that situation. I still have some questions about that.
Yeah, and I think that's fair because, like, I didn't necessarily have questions in the run game and the run blocking. Right. It was more about pass blocking, you know. So I guess we'll see what ends up playing out with them and how they look. As somebody said today, I don't think Ben Cleveland's in the doghouse. I think he's under it. But, you know, I guess we'll find out what this team looks like moving forward. They got to get a little healthier there. And then on top of it, after you get past the Cincinnati game, things start to get a little bit easier. And I'm not dismissing anybody that's on your schedule, but it's not these top-tier teams outside of the Raiders that you played.
All right, so when you do the sleep study, like, I assume they want things to be as normal for you as possible in order to get the best read of, you know, how you're sleeping. So, like, do you sleep naked? Like, what? How do you handle this when you go do the sleep study?
Well, I was wondering if they're going to be, you know, if they're going to be alarmed when I start sleep debating. So, you know, that's a thing that's been going on with me lately. But no, I was told about this. By the way, this thing costs like $5,000
just to sleep.
Just to go over somebody. This is the most expensive Airbnb I've ever went to.
Right.
But no, like with insurance, I think I end up having to pay like $400 out of pocket for it. But I'm going like, God, that's a lot of money. And from what I'm told is they wake me up every hour.
Oh, what the hell are they even learning? That's hell.
I think they're trying to study your breathing. Like, there's no doubt in my mind I have some form of sleep apnea or something else wrong. It's just a matter of figuring out what it is and getting it fixed. Like this weekend, I was telling somebody else, I woke up every 2 hours falling asleep, like every 2 hours. Can't sleep any longer than that. So
that's hell. I mean, that's brutal. I'm definitely, like, I finally reached the point where it's very difficult to make it through a night without having to get up to pee. And, like, then once you do that, the ability to get back to sleep is next to none. So that's my bigger issue. Like, is I'm 40 now and I got to deal with that. But man, dude, like the 2 hours thing, that is sheesh.
Oh yeah. Well, like Saturday night was really bad too. I was telling somebody else, like, it almost felt like I forgot how to breathe. If that even makes sense. Like, you wake up and you're gasping for air, and it's like, the hell is that?
Oh,
like, you know. then you're trying to catch your breath, and you've done nothing but lay on your side sleeping the entire time.
So what you're saying is like Thursday Mayo Dogs? That's what you're thinking?
Well, so it definitely can't be Tuesday or Wednesday. Wednesday's my anniversary, and I'm off work.
Well, what are you doing something?
Well, so this is what's messed up, man. So like in talking about making it to the playoff games, I have that sleep study. I could technically do tomorrow, but I'd be rushing it to get to the study and make sure everything's all right.
Yeah.
Wednesday, my wife had already planned. She had plans. We were going to a French restaurant. I think we're going to what's the name of the one?
The Milton Inn.
With you guys, it's not the. Say again.
The Milton Inn.
No, not the Milton Inn. It's a French restaurant.
Well, that's what they turned the Milton into a French restaurant.
No, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of it. Because,
I don't know.
Ed used to do commercials for him, and I think John actually offered me a gift card there once.
French place.
It'll come to me in a second. But
All
anyway,
right.
and then we have concert tickets to see Ray LaMontagne. So.
Oh, that's cool. Is he at the Lyric?
Yeah.
Where's he?
I think he's down at a pier.
Okay.
Pier 6,
All right.
Pier 5, Pier 4. He's in one of the piers.
The summer that my wife and I got married, our first dance song was "You Are the Best Thing," right? And so she saw that he was playing Merriweather that summer, and she was like, "Oh, we should go." And I was like, "You're right, we should go." And I love Ray LaMontagne, so he didn't play it. Like
really?
He didn't.
Not even the encore?
Nope. Like he's that type of artist where like it's almost like it came off like he detests the fact that was a very popular song, and so he didn't play it. Yeah, I was not thrilled. Mrs. Clark was beside herself.
By the way, it's Petit Louis, and I'm so upset
Petit
at myself
Louis.
that I couldn't
Okay.
remember that name.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to go there. I love French food. Anyway, look at me. I love all food except for haggis.
It's
Scottish food and Irish food, you can shove that up your ass
snails.
as far as I'm concerned.
Just nothing but snails all night.
Yeah, but so I almost got in a fist fight at a Ray LaMontagne concert.
Well, that's how.
So we had seats. We were at Merriweather, and we had seats in the I guess you call it the pavilion there, or underneath.
Yeah.
And there were people that were sitting behind us that would not stop talking about wine and what they were drinking. And they were loud and obnoxious, and nobody in our section would stand up and say anything, to which my buddy's girlfriend said, "Hey, you guys are talking an awful lot. We paid money for these seats. Like, if you're going to talk, why don't you go up on the infield or somewhere else to talk if you're not going to listen to the music?" And she was very, polite but stern about it. And then the girls, they started bad-mouthing her, to which I turned around and told the one girl, I said, "If you don't shut up right now, I'm going to kick the crap out of your boyfriend. I will drag him out into the field over there and beat his ass." And he looked at her. They got up. They all left. They went somewhere else, started talking. And then the rest of the people in my section stood up and started clapping.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Look at you. Hero.
I mean, I wasn't trying to be it was just ignorant the way that they were mocking my friend for asking them not to talk during
a concert.
We're not at a rock concert or something.
Right.
It's a little bit more intimate with Ray LaMontagne with his beard, and I started getting undressed. Just tough.
All right. Happy anniversary, pal. Best of luck with the sleep study. Remind everybody, ConcreteLocks.com, right?
Yeah, hit the lock of the week. We're on a little bit of a win streak here with the lock of the week. And by the way, what Andrew was talking about that I called 5 anytime touchdowns. And yesterday, all 5 that I listed hit. So nice end.
Ooh, that is lovely. All right, buddy. Are you doing the show? What days are you doing all week for the show?
I'm off Wednesday because
the
sleep study ends at 6.
Yeah.
So I was going to come in late, but they just told me to take off.
All right, very good. Love you, pal. Appreciate you. Let's talk again Monday, all right?
All right, I'll see you guys.
Jermey Conn, Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan, ConcreteLocks.com. CIAA tournament is coming back to Baltimore February 25th through March 1st at CFG Bank Arena. And right now, you can take advantage just for this week of a very special offer, $75 off a week-long pass. So instead of the pass costing you $275, it's just $200 if you use the code SCHOOL75. Go to CIAAtournament.org in order to find out more, but use the code SCHOOL75. Take advantage of $75 off a week-long pass for both the men's and women's tournaments. CIAA tournament coming back to CFG Bank Arena February 25th to March 1st. When we come back in, We'll do 3 up. The final time, we'll do 3 up. No, I guess we'll do 3 up, 3 down for the playoffs. Final time for the regular season, though. We'll go 3 up, 3 down. Then we'll get a tidbit and two-bit to wrap it up. It's a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Driving in Maryland? Did you know an Easy Pass from DriveEasyMD.com can save you time and money? Of course you did, because you are a thrifty driver. An antenna reads your Easy Pass transponder and automatically deducts the toll from your Easy Pass account. Learn more at DriveEasyMD.com.
Pressbox's Project Game Day is the place to be after every game this season. Join Glenn Clark, Rita Hubbard, Super Bowl 35 champion Femi Ayanbadejo, and our cast of regulars as they break down what happened, why it mattered, and what it means moving forward. You can watch the show at PressBoxOnline.com/gameday or Pressbox's Facebook and YouTube pages. Project Game Day is brought to you by the Green Turtle Sportsbook in Towson and Canton, Easy Pass, and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. So join us for Project Game Day after every game day this football season at PressBoxOnline.com/game day.
Treat yourself and taste the Baltimore tradition that is the legendary Costas Inn. Hey, it's Stan the Fan Charles. For over 50 years, the Costas Inn has been a Baltimore original, dishing out their legendary fat, delicious, award-winning crab cakes and steamed crabs. It's crab season, so sit back and crack some crabs while watching the Birds pursue another divisional title on Costas's 15 TVs. On Monday night, the Costas Inn offers their half-pound jumbo lump crab cake with 2 sides for under $30. So head on down to the Costas Inn today at 4100 North Point Boulevard or visit them at CostasInn.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Brace yourselves for an unparalleled in-person betting experience at the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbook and Bars in Canton and Towson. Experience the thrill of live betting with Baltimore's only state-of-the-art Vegas viewing TV experience. Choose between our on-site tellers or the convenience of our self-bet kiosks to place your bets. Gather your betting buddies and head over to the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks today. Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. The ultimate destination for game day excitement, great food, and live in-person betting. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Go to mdgamblinghelp.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
All right. Back in here on GCR as we wind down for a Monday edition of the program. Today's show has also been brought to you by the print issue of PressBox, which is still available for a couple of more weeks. It's got Kyle Hamilton on the cover. Great cover story from our own Bo Smolka. Go get it for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find PressBox. Read it all at PressBoxOnline.com. All right, it's time for this.
Three up.
And 3 down.
3 up and 3 down, brought to you by County Sports Zone, countysports.zone. That's the place to turn for everything you need to know about high school sports all year long. So not just high school football, all the other fall sports, soccer and field hockey. And then before you know it, it'll be basketball and lacrosse and baseball. They've got you covered. Every sport, every team, every school, every level, every part of the state, every score reported at countysports.zone. plus polls, news updates, everything you could possibly need to know. Countysports.zone. They've got you covered. 3 up and 3 down for the week for the Baltimore Orioles. They went 5-1. Been a long time since we've done 3 up and 3 down for even a winning week. The up. I'll go with number 3 is Gregory Soto for me, who 3 scoreless appearances. You have more confidence in Gregory Soto than you do in anybody, besides, I mean, Coulomb, fine. Like, I'll give you that. But Gregory Soto has been their top late inning option of late. And that's terrifying, fascinating. Terrifying, fascinating, the whole thing. Gregory Soto, number 3.
Yeah, Soto, I couldn't squeeze him into my list. He was very good. He's giving us a lot of confidence.
It's weird because there were a lot of guys who were good this week, but not like it was not
like,
top
this guy's
heavy.
demanding to be on the list.
Yeah, and the problem is like some of the guys whose numbers were crazy, like Emmanuel Rivera. You'd look at his numbers a week, and be like, well, but it was one game.
Yeah. Maybe I was looking at it too much as like a whole, but I did throw Emmanuel Rivera on my list. He was my number 3. I mean, he looked good. He looked good against the Twins. Like he played solid.
He had a big game.
defense.
He sure had a big game.
So hopefully he can keep that hot streak going against AL Central teams. Emmanuel Rivera was my number 3. Just kind of, it was a week where, I guess, really just one game mattered. But like.
No, this is so for one game that mattered. My number 2 is Cade Povich because Friday night's game did still matter for 2 reasons. The first being they needed to lock up, hosting. But also, they needed to make sure that they didn't have to pitch Dean Kramer over the weekend. That was really important going into this weekend. And I don't think that's what Cade Povich was thinking about going into Friday night. But that was the unspoken part of the weekend, was that they decided Dean Kramer was their Game 3 starter, and so they could not have him pitch this weekend because then it throws things into upheaval. Ironically, if they have to throw Dean Kramer over the weekend, I guess at that point then they would have had the ability to bullpen the final game and then just make Albert Suarez their Game 3 starter. But that's not what they wanted to do. They didn't want to throw Dean Kramer. So Friday night's game mattered. And Cade Povich was phenomenal. I mean, was outstanding. Now, I get it. The Twins look like they had given up. Like they looked like they had rollen over by the time we got around to the weekend. But Cade Povich was sparkling for 5 2/3. So Cade Povich was my number 2 for the week.
I had to throw in Keegan Aiken as my number 2. I guess, again, they get the games against the Twins didn't really matter a whole lot. So that was where he gave up runs. But in Yankee Stadium, he looked pretty good, and it's like better. It's more of a microcosm of like the month that Keegan Aiken has put together. Picked up his first save of the season. Was that his first career save? I couldn't remember if that was his.
I don't know.
I'll double check on that. But Keegan Aiken picked up the save in Yankee Stadium, and I've been harsh on him throughout the season. So he did enough for me to have to throw him a bone. So Keegan Aiken, my number 2 for the week.
The Orioles' overall best offensive player of the week was Ryan O'Hearn. He's number 1 for me.
I had Jacob Webb as my number 1. Just great to have him back, and on top of having Coulomb back, but Webb went 4 appearances, 4 innings, didn't allow a run, only let up, he had 2 3-base runners, I think, on the week. Jacob Webb was my number 1, and, makes you feel like this bullpen should be capable of getting it done for at least a series in the playoffs. So Jacob Webb was my number 1.
I'm trying to think about why.
You hate my list?
Yeah, well, it's awful. It's terrible. I mean, there's no way. It's a dreadful list. I'm trying to think.
Like O'Hearn was still just. Because did he have 2 home runs Friday night too? Like, or he just had the 1.
I'm trying. I think some. Did he have 2 on Friday? He might have had 2 on Friday night. You might be. Or you might be right.
Maybe I'm just combining Emmanuel Rivera's entire game.
But Emmanuel Rivera only had 8 at-bats for the week. That's the problem. He had 8 at-bats for the week. Ryan O'Hearn had 20 at-bats. He went 8 for 20 for the week. So even if you said, well, it was 2 home runs in one game, he had a big week. He OPS'd 1179 for the week in playing, in really actually contributing.
Rivera contributed too.
For a game.
Friday night mattered.
For a game, Emmanuel Rivera contributed. All right. And Emmanuel Rivera, it wasn't Friday night for Emmanuel Rivera. It was Saturday night.
Was it?
Yes, it was Saturday night. Saturday night did not matter.
Do you want me to retroactively go back here then?
No.
Emmanuel Rivera had a good week.
It's fine. Ryan O'Hearn.
He's had a good month.
Yeah. He's had a good month, but it's,
He has.
All right.
Yeah.
3 down. Number 3. I don't want to overreact to it, but it was a bad week for Jordan Westberg. It was. Again, I'm not overreacting because he's still working his way back. So whatever, it's what it is. Number 3, Jordan Westberg.
I didn't have any offensive guy. Like Westberg was the worst offensive guy, and it just didn't seem like it was that egregious because he still had a couple hits, and it just feels like it's just good to have him back. Like having him,
that part I'm fine with. I'm
back.
fine with saying I'm not going to overreact to it, but ignoring it.
Yennier Cano was my number 3.
Much higher on my list.
For a rough week.
Much higher on my list. Number 2 is Adley Rutschman. That's the one I'll go ahead and continue to overreact to. Like, Jordan Westberg was bad, but, whatever. Adley Rutschman was bad. Bad again. And that's disappointing because the week before we had started to see, like, moments where you're like, oh, maybe he's turning things around. Not the case this week. I don't know. I don't know. I really am at the point. I prefaced that when we had the conversation with Zach Moore. Like, it's tough to talk about it. Like, do you really not trust Adley Rutschman at all going into the playoffs? But, like, I really don't know that I trust Adley Rutschman at all going into the playoffs. And I hate that. Like, I hate it, but
I'm not as like I worrisome about it as you are, and I guess Zach is. I think he is still going to have to be in the starting lineup tomorrow.
I do think he'll be in the starting lineup again because of O'Hearn. Because it's O'Hearn against a lefty, I think they'll choose to put Adley Rutschman in the lineup. But I think he can only be in the lineup as a DH, and I don't feel good about him in the lineup as a DH.
And because he strung together like a couple of multi-hit games over the weekend, and that was enough to keep Adley off my list. I had Perez is my number 2.
Okay.
For again another not a great week for guys that were expecting a lot of that, and maybe that's why just the contrast of Perez and Cano and Jacob Webb looking like Jacob Webb. So that was why Webb landed as my number 1.
Yennier Cano is absolutely my number 1. I mean, like this is brutal. It's obviously the wrong time for it to be coming.
Matt Bowman was number 1, making sure that we do not put him on the playoff roster. So yeah, Matt Bowman.
Matt Bowman, and for God's sakes,
Matt. Awful.
Fine, who cares? And by the way, he wasn't even awful on Saturday. He was awful,
against the Yankees.
Yes, correct. But for God's sakes, it's Matt Bowman. I have zero expectations there. We'll get him up at glennclarkradio.com. That's 3 Up and 3 Down for this week. All right, 3 Up and 3 Down was also brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, what's going on at Live Casino and Hotel?
Right now, during home football games for Baltimore or Washington, that's right, when Baltimore or Washington football teams are home and they score a touchdown, Live Rewards members will receive $7 in free slot play. You have to have your Live Rewards card inserted correctly into the slot machine. You have to be actively playing that said machine as well on any machine. Any machine works, but you have to have your Live Rewards card inserted in and receive your prize, which is $7 in free slot play for touchdowns scored by Washington or Baltimore during their home games this season. It's valid for slot play only, and this is Adirondack Mills. Must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit mdgamblinghelp.org or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, very good. Let's do this.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
All right, so what you got for tidbits?
Off the stats, obviously the White Sox did, in fact, set the MLB record, worst season of all time in MLB history, so congratulations to the Chicago White Sox. As the 2024 season became just the third in MLB history to have 3 teams with 100 or more losses and 0 teams with 100 or more wins. That joins 1908 and 1964 as the only seasons with 3 100-loss teams and no 100-win teams in baseball. Jackson Holiday over the weekend. This was this yesterday's game? Yeah, yesterday's game. Saturday's game. Holiday became the youngest player in Orioles history to reach base safely 5 times in a game at 20 years old and 299 days old. Youngest player in Orioles history to reach base 5 times in a game. Youngest player in MLB to do it since 2019.
2019.
2019.
2019. That's not Acuna at that point. 29.
I don't know. He might have been up, but it is not Acuna.
2019 would be Tatis?
Not Tatis.
Vlad?
Not Vlad. He would win a World Series this year.
Win a World Series. Now you're making me go back and remember who won the World Series in 2019.
Can't remember?
Was that Washington? So it was Soto.
Yes, Juan Soto, youngest player since Juan Soto to reach base 5 times in a game. Ronnie Stanley pointed out that Patrick McCary has completed his mission of starting all 5 positions.
There you go. How about that?
I couldn't find if there were any other guys that have done this, or how many guys have played all 5 positions on the offensive line, or at least started there over their career. But yeah, McCary, as Ronnie Stanley called him, a unicorn for starting all 5 positions.
That is kind of crazy. Yeah.
I couldn't. I wasn't sure. I'm pretty positive this is the correct stat. But the Ravens now are undefeated with Seth freaking Rollins in attendance.
Do you know that though? Do you know that?
I'm pretty positive. I wasn't able to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we have a roster? Is there Pro Football Reference on that one?
On how many games Seth freaking Rollins has attended? Yeah, they won last night. It was Seth freaking Rollins in attendance. And
but I did not see him get tossed out of the stands or anything like that. I don't know what the deal was.
It was he was, because I saw somebody, there was another, the Ravens posted a video, and then I think WWE posted a video. So I think he was plugging whatever event is this weekend on Peacock. Is there something on?
I'm sure they've got a pay-per-view or whatever coming up. That's fine. But why he was at the Ravens game?
Well, I think maybe it was
just because it's the NBC.
Yeah, I don't know. It looked like maybe he was more there on behalf of Peacock, and then the Ravens were like, "Oh, we're gonna do a thing for you then."
Whatever. Go ahead.
Derrick Henry rushed his 3rd career touchdown of 80 yards or more last night. His 3rd career touchdown of 80 yards or more. There are only 2 players in NFL history with more 80-yard rushing touchdowns.
Adrian Peterson.
He is one of them. 5 80-yard rushing touchdowns in Adrian Peterson's career.
It was the only obvious one, so now I have no idea.
He's number 2 on the list, so you're missing number 1. He had 6 80-yard touchdowns.
6 80-yard. I guess I should say Jim Brown, but I don't think it's Jim Brown.
Not Jim Brown.
I don't think it's Emmitt Smith. Oh, LaDainian Tomlinson would make some sense.
Not LaDainian Tomlinson, not Emmitt Smith.
Man, there is no other. None of these are obvious to me. I'm just going to guess good running backs, and we'll go from there. Barry Sanders.
Not Barry Sanders.
Frank Gore.
Not Frank Gore.
Marshall Faulk.
Not Marshall Faulk.
Terrell Davis. Edgerrin James. Curtis Martin. Thurman Thomas. Ricky. No, why would Ricky Williams be the guy?
He was. Let's see.
Jerome Bettis.
Late 2000s.
Late 2000s. Jamal Charles.
Not Jamal Charles.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Not MJD.
CJ2K.
Yes.
Oh?
Chris Johnson.
Okay.
6 touchdowns. 6 80-yard rushing touchdowns in his career, the most in NFL history.
All right. Very good. Now, let's get tubular.
Sure. Experience the thrill of the Mars Maryland 5-Star at Fair Hill, presented by Brown Advisory, coming October 17th to 20th. See the world's best equestrians compete in the sport of eventing, the ultimate test of horse and rider. Enjoy a weekend festival featuring local food, shopping, and fun for all. Come for the event and stay for the experience in Cecil County, home to the Chesapeake Bay waterfront, vibrant small towns, and family entertainment. Tickets on sale now at maryland5star.us.
All right, very good. Here's what's coming up. Totally Tubular. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. The doubleheader this afternoon. Mets, Braves in Atlanta. It's first game's at 1:10. Both games are on ESPN2. And if either team wins both games, they're in and the Diamondbacks are in. If they split the two games, then those two teams are the teams that are in.
So should they conspire with each
Yeah,
other?
I had it like we win game one, you guys win
listen,
game two.
I don't care
yeah.
who you throw game one or game two. Like,
yeah.
listen, we'll let you have this one. We get that next one.
Correct. Yeah, that would be.
It's like, well, then we win the first one.
Right. Well, we want. Yeah. Whatever. I don't know. But that starts this afternoon. Then, speaking of doubleheaders, Monday Night Football doubleheader, ESPN.
Sports Day.
Yeah, ESPN is Titans Dolphins 7:30, which is. Yeah, although Tyler Huntley will start for the Dolphins tonight, so you got that going for you if you wanted to see that again in your life. And then ABC's got Seahawks Lions, which should be a good one. That's at 8:15. Capitals Blue Jackets at 7 on Monumental as they're still doing that preseason hockey. Rangers Devils at 7. Kings Ducks at 10 on NHL Network. USA for WWE Monday Night Raw tonight at 8. Non-sports.
Yeah, not really. English teacher, no episode of that on FX. And Jelly Roll is staying at the NBC studios. He's on Fallon tonight. Mookie Betts will be on Jimmy Kimmel for reasons, I guess, as well. And that's it. John Cheadle will be on Colbert.
Okay. All right. Very good.
That's really the only stuff.
All right.
Big sports night.
All right. Thanks today to Jermey Conn. Thanks also to Zach Moore, as well as to Femi Ayanbadejo. We'll get it up in the greatest hits section of the...
Here we go.
Do we keep doing that? That's what I'm wondering, is do we keep doing it? Or is it just what it is now?
I mean...
Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. We'll just...
Are we rooting for the Mets today?
I didn't even say greatest. I didn't even say greatest hit. The greatest hit section of the... Yeah, I said it wrong. I screwed it up. I threw us off today.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I guess we just keep it. Like, I guess. The Ravens won. Like, we'll keep it moving forward. I don't know.
Here we go.
Until we come up with something else. Tomorrow on the program, anything? We'll get you ready for Orioles. Royals. That's the plan.
We're definitely gonna do that.
We'll work on that. Yikes. Thanks, everybody at Press Box.
Waiver wire Wednesday.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thanks, everybody at Press Box. All of our great sponsors and partners, including the Maryland 5-Star, the CIAA Tournament, Maritime Magic, Live Casino and Hotel, Cruise Maryland, Ocean City, Easy Pass, Royal Farms, Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costa Sin, MSAA, AJ Michaels, Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go nobody. Duke sucks.